Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D on Twitter, joined as always every Friday by Adam Scher at Ship My Money DFS, breaking down an 11-gamer today, coming off Thanksgiving. Hope all you had a wonderful holiday. Mine was fine, not bad, pretty good for the most part. Adam's doing his tomorrow, though. So a day off turns into a day of family, huh?
Yeah, going up to my sister's tomorrow. So came down to my mom's yesterday just to hang out for the day, and then driving up to my sister's tomorrow. So yeah, my day off turns into not a day off. But
is this
whatever.
A big thing? Like a lot of people?
No, as far as I know, it's just me, my mom, my dad, my sister, and her fiance. But yeah, I think that's all it is. But we're just going up to her house.
Cool. Yeah, I'm still tired after yesterday. It's like there's a recuperation day involved after Thanksgiving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I had like turkey and stuff yesterday, even though I didn't. I'm just like beat too. I think it's just like everybody else is tired and it's wearing off on me.
Yeah, and I'm pissed because Chris Karen took like 10 days off, and I'm thinking, why didn't I do that? But here we are. Anyway, we're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. We were at 66,666 likes when we started this show. So let's get away from the evil. Whether you subscribe or even unsubscribe for that matter, let's get that number fixed up real quick. But more than anything, hit that thumbs up. And if you want to join, hit that join, get the emojis, the badges, all of that good stuff, the free super chats, the shout outs, and priority questions. Ray P and Gangrene, welcome to Team Awesemo, which is weird because Tyler, that was on the earlier show that they joined. So it's like a double dip of some sort. I don't know, but I certainly saw it earlier on the contrary, NFL edition. Scott Simpson joined Alex Baker and myself. Be sure to check that out. You ready to dive into this?
Yeah, let's go.
So first question, as always, some injuries we're waiting on. Obviously, Jokic has missed a handful of games at this point. LeBron's expected to play. Those are the big ones. Nothing like when you and I talked on, what was it, Tuesday's slate, I guess, where it was only like a 4-game slate, but there were a ton of injuries that were pending with Jokic and Doncic. So this one's not like that. What type of slate are we looking at? Balanced, stars, scrubs? Can we do a lot of different things with this one or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do some different things. I think mostly it's balanced. I know FanDuel has basically like a lot of mid-range guys that are $500 to $1,000 too cheap. DraftKings is a little bit tighter, but still plenty of mid-range guys. The one thing that changes it up a bit is if Jokic plays, he's just, again, he's just kind of on his own planet right now in terms of fantasy production. So any slate that Jokic is on, I'm not really opposed to just finding ways to get Jokic into your lineup. But outside of that, I think that it's another slate where we're seeing kind of the opposite of what we've seen in previous years. You're seeing very aggressive pricing on the top tier and then a lot more lax pricing on the mid tier. And that kind of just opens the door for more mid-range balanced lineups.
This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Michael Roundtree said, I swear I saw Eitan Shander on a QVC show today. Was at the gym, and I swear it was him. It was. Eitan does QVC.
Yeah.
Oh, you knew that?
Yeah. Yeah, he got it he started doing that right after I met him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Eitan legit. He's slinging the crystals, he's slinging it all out there on QVC. Buy something. Tell him Laffy sent you. All right, let's go Minnesota and Charlotte out of the gate here. 1 of 11 games. Minnesota at Charlotte, 225.5 total. Close spread here. Charlotte only 2.5 point favorites at home. Minnesota, no real injury news to speak of outside of Patrick Beverley being sidelined for this one. So let's kick it off there. Karl-Anthony Towns. I feel like we haven't talked about Towns all that much this season when you and I do shows. Granted, there's usually a Jokic or some of these other players that take priority. But Anthony Edwards is another guy whose price point has kind of fluctuated a lot recently. He does seem to have a pretty big range of outcomes coming off a monster game, 70 fantasy points against Miami. Where do you go at the top for Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, I think Minnesota is one of the more appealing teams tonight. It's a really good matchup against Charlotte. They're one of the fastest teams in the league. They don't play well defensively, but you also have some pretty favorable pricing here. You have Russell at 7,400 on both DraftKings and FanDuel. He's averaged about 1.15 DraftKings points per minute in the 10 games Since he came back from injury, he's averaging about 33 minutes per game in those games as well. You have Anthony Edwards, who his usage rate in those 10 games is 27%, which is fine, but it's down from where he was at earlier in the year. But he's also averaging like 36 and a half minutes per game. He gives you a massive ceiling, as you saw in a difficult matchup against Miami the other day. So he still looks good. And then Towns, you mentioned typically he's always a good play from a ceiling standpoint, but because there's so many good center options, he can be kind of difficult to get to sometimes. That can be the case again tonight, but he's also favorably priced in a really good matchup. 8,800 on FanDuel really stands out. 9,500 on DraftKings is fine as well. So all three of those pieces look good. And then you also get probably one of the most popular value plays on the slate in Malik Beasley at 3,900. Patrick Beverley out for the next couple of weeks. Beasley started the second half in his place last game, ended up playing a ton of minutes. Don't know for sure if he'll be in the starting lineup tonight, but one way or another, there's plenty of minutes available for him to pick up. He's only averaged 0.75 DraftKings points per minute this year, but at a $3,900 price tag, he's going to project really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling up ownership, and our last update was 4 minutes ago for those of you that are premium members at Awesemo and wanted to get just needed to know there was an update. I mean, Edwards on DraftKings is getting around 30% today, Adam. He is basically tied as the highest projected owned player on the entire slate.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense when you consider the positions. Like, I think that I don't think there's a big difference in projection between him and D'Angelo Russell, but Edwards you can roster in extra lineup spots because he has guard and forward eligibility. So it just really makes him stand out.
All right. So, I mean, yeah, you have Edwards, Russell, Towns, Beasley, all of them pulling quite a bit of ownership for such a big slate. And then outside of that, you're not getting much, maybe a little Jared Vanderbilt if you're playing a lot of lineups, and then it falls off to nothing. Are all four of those guys players that are going to be not staples, but definitely in your player pool today if you're playing 150?
Yeah, for sure. Like the only question marks on any of these guys is how popular they end up being and how they fit into lineups from an ownership standpoint. But in terms of projection and range of outcomes and salary and all that, these are some of the top plays on the entire slate.
Okay. Ryan, thank you for the super chat. Said I can't get into Discord. Tyler, how do we get these people Discord links? We can't throw it in chat because then all craziness happens. We'll figure that out for you, Ryan. Can someone do a show on importing CSV to FanDuel? All the ones I watch don't help. Thanks as always, guys. Thank you. Are you sure we haven't done that? I swear we've done stuff. Yeah, Josh has for sure. I see if we can point you in the right direction to that. With Charlotte on the other side of this one, you've got Mason Plumlee, who is at the time questionable for this one. Picked up that injury last game. Hasn't been playing a ton of minutes, mid-20s for the most part, down a little bit recently. What does his absence do in the event that he sits? Is there anyone that ends up popping?
That's a really good question because I don't really know. Josh and I talked about it this morning. Like, our best guess is that you would get Nick Richards in the starting lineup and he would play more minutes at 3K flat. Certainly wouldn't be somebody that you're very confident in one way or the other. But that was our guess at who would get the start in Plumlee's place, but potentially they could go different directions there. It's been kind of hard to figure out exactly what they think of Richards because James Borrego has been complimentary towards Richards, but then he's also cut his playing time back. So we don't really know, and we haven't seen what they're going to do without him. Normally, you would have PJ Washington just stepping in there, but this is only Washington's second game back from a prolonged absence. He didn't play much in the first game back, so it's kind of hard to think that he's just going to slide into the starting lineup and play 30 minutes or anything after playing 6 minutes against Orlando last game. So I don't really have a confident answer. This is, the first game of the night, so we'll get a starting lineup, but my best guess is that you would get a spot start from Nick Richards, kind of playing those like 20 to 22 minutes, and then you would get a similar rotation after that.
So then what, like Jalen McDaniels gets the backup minutes? Yeah,
more McDaniels, Bridges. I mean, PJ Washington would probably play more than 6.
Yeah, you would think so. So, all right, then I guess this would be the question, because we will get this news early. It's a 7 p.m. game. We'll know this. Is Richards at minimum salary then getting, because he's around a fantasy point per minute this season in the limited time he's gotten. Is this somebody that if he draws the start, you plug in, say, project for 22 minutes at a center position that you and I talk about all the time is great for just plug and play guys because of the peripherals you kind of just fall into. Would 22 minutes be enough for you? I would certainly think so, to get some of them at least at minimum salary.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be kind of borderline, I think, just because there is so much opportunity cost at the position as well. And there's no certainty he plays 22. I mean, you could get 16 and then, PJ Washington plays 16 or something like that. So, I mean, I think I would get there if he starts, but it wouldn't be a lot, and it probably wouldn't be if I'm playing like 3-max or anything. We also just got news that Rashawn Holmes is out for the Kings, which does matter to this conversation because it also probably opens the door for another Alex Len start at minimum salary.
Yeah, that is significant. But Len, I mean, played only 20 or 17 minutes last game as well as a starter.
It's just
and
it would be another
foul machine.
Right. It would be another similar center that produces at a very high rate, potentially could play more minutes tonight. So just having another option like that makes it so Richard certainly wouldn't be a priority.
What happened to Washington, man? This was an everyday 35-minute per game starter.
He's been hurt.
I know.
Out
but even before he got hurt, his minutes were limited.
Oh yeah, he'd had like weird rotations where sometimes he'd play the 4 and the 5, but then other times they were just using him as Plumlee's backup. It was kind of weird. I don't know if it was basically just the emergence of Bridges or what, but his rotations before his absence had been kind of confusing.
You think he could start at the 5 tonight?
If he had played more than 6, if he had played more than 6 minutes last game, he'd be my 2. I think it is, but I just don't have any.
I think it still could be.
Yeah, it could be. I just don't have any level of confidence in like how many minutes he's capable of playing right now.
Yeah, well, Borrego makes things miserable anyway. So
yeah,
it's just the way he does things. We've talked about that a lot. Let's talk about, or actually anything else you want to talk about, because I didn't really get to much Charlotte outside of that center rotation.
Terry Rozier's salary really stands out. He's $6K on DraftKings, I believe $6,300 on FanDuel. Coming off of a monster game against Orlando, you don't want to read too much into his production in that game. He had 6 steals and a block. He's not going to replicate that very often, if ever. But that is back-to-back games now where he's played at least 35 minutes. He's averaged about 32 to 33 minutes this season. So potentially seeing a little bit more playing time for him. He has a 23.5% usage rate. He's just still pretty cheap for the role that he's playing. Bridges, we know, is going to play a lot of minutes. LaMelo, we know, is a really high upside play. So all 3 of those guys look pretty good. I think Rozier probably the easiest to get to.
Phoenix and the New York Knicks. You've got the Suns coming into this one, coming over from the West Coast, still 3.5-point favorites, 216 total. This team is generally healthy. I mean, you've got Kaminsky, who continues to be out, but that's really it. At the same time, though, it hasn't exactly been a spot that we've been keying in on all that much. And it seems to be the same case today. I mean, if you look at aggregate ownership on this team, mostly across the board, you're not seeing anything jump off the page whatsoever, especially on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's more of the same. This is just a healthy team on an 11-game slate. It's not to say you can't play guys from the Suns, because we know how good Devin Booker can be. We know how good DeAndre Ayton can be. But it's more so that they just don't stand out compared to other options on teams that are either a little bit more favorably priced or in a little bit better matchup or banged up. Booker, I know, is 7,700 on FanDuel, so that looks like a good salary there. But it's just a spot where I'm using these guys as contrarian pieces, but not really building around any of them. I think any of Booker, Paul, Ayton, Bridges, even Crowder at 4K are, reasonable kind of like contrarian, relatively high ceiling for their price tag plays.
It is true, though, that teams that have been healthy like this, you're not going to get that same value that you are on a lot of these teams that are dealing with injuries, especially guys that are questionable or teams haven't been priced accordingly to adjust for that. Phoenix just seems to be that team every single week. New York is dealing with a couple. Derrick Rose and Mitchell Robinson, both questionable. Not to say it's the biggest impact you're going to get on this slate, but we've seen Derrick Rose sit out last time did Rose play and someone else? I can't remember.
No,
Rose was out. Yeah, Rose was out. He missed one game on the 23rd, I think it was. Do you have him in right now?
Yeah, at the moment, but don't really have a good feel one way or the other.
Do you like anything from the Knicks?
If Rose is in, I think it's pretty tough to like much. It's more of the same where, 4,500 Rose certainly can do well. 5K Kemba, if he's playing well, can get more minutes. But there's nothing that would really stand out. If Rose sits, it opens up a little bit, but it's still kind of just like throwing darts, because the one thing we did see last game was with Rose out, quickly essentially became Kemba's backup. So you actually didn't even get more run than normal for Kemba. What you did get was Evan Fournier go from basically not playing in fourth quarters to playing like the entire second half and playing 40 or 41 minutes. That's not something that I think is guaranteed to happen again if Rose is out, but it does increase the chances that Fournier plays in the fourth quarter for sure. He's 4,700, so he looks okay. In the front court, if Robinson were to be out, then Noel could play huge minutes again at 4,400. But either way, it's kind of just a team where, if guys are out, they're obviously going to look better, but they're still risky for one reason or another. Yeah,
I think you're right. And they're not pulling any ownership. I mean, at all. This team is almost essentially unowned entirely, Adam. Are there any guys now where you look at it and you're like, you know what, just zero ownership here that makes sense as a tournament pivot, or are there just so many better options that we have across such a big 11-game slate?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's better options. I also think that, if you get to a little bit of 5K Kemba, especially if Rose is out, but even if he's in, certainly fine. Burks, if Rose is out, gets a bump. But it's kind of just like everybody got a little bit of a salary increase last game. So it just makes them – the Knicks are always basically just a tournament team because the rotations are so difficult to trust. And then with the salary bump, it just makes it even more so. It's like 5K Kemba certainly can go for 35 DraftKings points. It's just not going to happen very often. There's a lot of plays that are going to look better. But as a last piece in, I don't have a problem with like a Nick here and there.
It's really not a good spot either. I mean, the Suns are third in defensive rating this season. They do play at an elevated pace, but man, that's about it. So Chicago, Orlando. Let's talk about the Bulls. We're ripping through some of these, but there will definitely be games that we spend a lot more time on. And thank you, Caleb McLean. He says, if and when you guys play Yahoo, do you still try to stay balanced, or do you like stars scrubs more with the pricing it offers? Thanks. Adam and I have talked about this a lot, actually. I mean, it all depends. Some days there aren't going to be great spots where you're getting cheap guys that are much better value. But I think you'd agree, right, Adam, that that Yahoo does lend more towards a stars and scrubs build on most slates, particularly the bigger ones.
Yeah, for sure. You typically just find more just mispriced guys down at, $10, $11, $12. It's more, I think the builds are a little bit more similar to what we used to see, what we were seeing like last season from DraftKings and FanDuel, where the mid-range is kind of a little bit more correctly priced, but then you just have these guys towards the bottom that are really cheap, and it makes it easy to get the guys at the top.
I remember back in like 2014, you remember Larry Sanders, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And block party, Larry Sanders. He was $3K minimum salary on DraftKings for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And everyone played him every single game.
Yeah, because it used to be that like the top tier guys were kind of like smushed down in salary, and then you got those 3K guys like Sanders or whoever that kind of just linger there. And then the mid-range was really tightly priced. Now it's like the opposite on DraftKings, but on Yahoo, you still have a lot of just cheap guys that shouldn't be as cheap as they are.
Eddie Yogi says, I'm not that guy, but 1K viewers and 160 likes is rough. You can be that guy, bro. That's okay. I appreciate the support. Hit that thumbs up. Oh, at least over 200, 23 to 200 only takes a second here. Only takes a second. And subscribe too if you haven't done so. What do we have? We got over 1,000 right now. Oh yeah, well over 1,000. Good stuff. Viewers, not likes. We'll get there though. Chicago Bulls, DeRozan, Vucevic, Zach LaVine. You had Vooch come back from a 2-week absence with COVID last game. Lonzo Ball being another one. This is God. I hate talking about the Bulls. You know this because it's just like sometimes it feels like you're just throwing darts, especially when Vooch is back. They're all so closely priced together. Dude, DeRozan, Vooch, and LaVine are $300 separated, and they're on the same team. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, and it's not like it's easy to just look at this team and say, oh, this is the game where LaVine's going to do well or DeRozan's going to do well or whatever. You can expect the most usage to go to LaVine and DeRozan, but obviously Vooch is still going to get some. He's going to get plenty of rebound attempts. One thing that I do like about Vooch is they said he was on a minutes limit in his first game back last time. He ended up playing 26 minutes, but he also fouled out with a few minutes to go. So it kind of seemed like his minutes limit was like 28-ish minutes. That makes me think that he's not really in bad shape and that you could certainly see like 31, 32 minutes here. He's still relatively expensive at a loaded center position, but, certainly playable. One thing I do like about the Bulls in this particular spot, a little bit more than I normally do, is this is a weird spot where we still have Orlando on the other side of this game, massively underpriced. So you're going to get a lot of ownership going to guys on Orlando, which is fine. But the reason it makes me like the Bulls a little bit more is what I compared it to this morning with Josh is like in NFL when you have a popular wide receiver and a popular tight end on the same team, but then the quarterback's not getting any ownership, and you can just like play that low-owned quarterback and positively correlate with some of the best plays on the slate. That's kind of how I view the Bulls here. You know, if people are going to play Suggs and Carter and Bamba and all these guys from Orlando, then obviously they're hoping they do well. If they do well, there's a good chance that this game is not getting blown out. If this game doesn't get blown out, it means you're getting 36 minutes against one of the worst teams in the NBA from Zach LaVine at 8,700 or from DeRozan at 9K. So it's a situation where, they positively correlate with the guys that everyone else is playing and that are just, pretty objectively some of the best plays on the slate, and they have massive ceilings. And if those popular plays do well, there's a good chance you're getting full run from the Bulls.
Yeah, exactly. Addy says the crazy thing is Adam is the GOAT. He's giving you the true plays, so you should like for him, especially because he doesn't ask for it. You got to appreciate that. First of all, he is giving you good plays. Man, there's a stuff. So, but don't pull that, especially because he isn't asking for like shit. I mean, it's not your job. Your job is to provide analysis.
Yeah, exactly. And not badger people for likes.
Right. Listen, we got to get there somehow. We got to stay on the screen. And someone said, Edmund said, take the hat off and we'll get 1K. What do you think? I'm bald, dude? Come on. I'll take the hat off any day of the week.
Chat's obsession with hats or no hats is strange.
What's that?
Chat's obsession with hats or no hats is strange.
Very, very strange. Yeah. A lot of them think I just have like this huge bald spot in the middle of my head. No, we got hair. We still got something going on. Come on. But yeah, dude, I think this is just a weird Chicago team from night to night. If DeRozan were to get hurt or LaVine were to get hurt, it'd be just so much different, but that's not the case. Do you have anything else from the Bulls?
No, LaVine, DeRozan, Ball, Vooch, all I think good tournament plays. I guess I would say LaVine's probably my favorite. If I'm playing one lineup and you tell me I have to play a guy from Chicago, I would go LaVine just because he's a little bit cheaper than DeRozan and Vooch, but I don't think there's much separating these guys, particularly LaVine and DeRozan.
Yep. All right, so Orlando. What do we do with Orlando that Cole Anthony's still out? We're still waiting on Terrence Ross as well.
Yeah, for what it's worth. Oh, sorry, did you say something?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. For what it's worth, Ross went through shoot around, so I don't know if that means he's likely to play or not. It's Orlando. They probably don't really give a shit, but he did go through shoot around, so I'm assuming he plays for now. But this is kind of just the same situation we've been in with Orlando for a while. The salaries are really cheap. Even if Cole Anthony were in, these salaries would be appealing. You take Cole Anthony out, and it certainly opens up more production for these guys. It also makes Orlando a substantially worse team when he's not on the floor. So, it does make them, I guess, more likely to get blown out, but they suck either way. So I think that it's just kind of more of these guys look really good. You just want to pay attention to the ownership of the rest of your lineup when you're going to them. We have Wendell Carter Jr. at 30% ownership on DraftKings. He's leading the way. Power forward and center eligibility for a guy that, if this game's close, is likely to play 28 plus minutes. He averages about 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. It's just a complete mispricing. So I understand that ownership. Franz Wagner at 4,300 had a horrible game 2 games ago, bounced back with a good game last time out. He's likely to play 30 to 32 minutes. He's averaged about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute this year, so he projects well. Jalen Suggs, I know, hasn't been very good this year, but he's the second highest usage guy on the team. He's second in assist percentage, both behind Anthony. In his minutes overall, without Anthony on the floor this year, he's got about a 27.5% usage rate. He's got about a 23% assist percentage. In the 3 full games he has played without Anthony, he has a 31% usage rate, a 27% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.01 DraftKings points per minute, only 24 minutes per game in those 3 games, but that's because of the one game against Milwaukee where he only played 17 minutes in a massive blowout, played 25 minutes through 3/4 in another blowout, and then played 30 minutes in the competitive game last time out. So 5,200, tons of opportunities for Suggs are still there. Mo Bamba looks good at 6,400, blocks a ton of shots, gets a lot of steals, second on the team in rebounding percentage. They're a really bad team in real life, but the pricing and the production of several guys on this team make them look like one of the best DFS teams tonight once again.
Who's your top options from Orlando?
Wendell Carter is number one for me. I think Suggs is second, but it's close. Like Suggs, Wagner, Bamba are pretty close. I think that Suggs getting less ownership than Wagner makes me like Suggs a little bit more. And if Terrence Ross plays at 3,800, he's a good option as well.
How many of these guys are you willing to put in the same lineup?
Definitely not going more than 3. Ideally, it would be like 2, but I'm pretty sure I'll cap it at 3.
Okay.
If it were a smaller slate, I'd be fine going 4. One thing that I mentioned it the other day when they played Charlotte, I think one alternative you could, like if you don't want to artificially cap it at 3, since there are 4 just clearly very good plays here. One thing you could do is say, like, okay, especially if you're playing 150 lineup, say like, okay, I'm fine getting 4, but if I have 4, I have to have one of like Levine, DeRozan, Vooch, just kind of turn it into a game stack and hope that it shoots out or something. But otherwise, I think I'm probably just going 3 or less.
Jordan, thanks for the super chat. Says, when crunching lineups, is it bad to make everyone 50% exposure to avoid a player being in every lineup? Appreciate you guys. So Adam, if you don't have something that's setting exposure caps for you, is there a best way to go about that, you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Sorry, because there's a ton of people that don't have that luxury that could probably benefit from this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different ways to do it. I think one just kind of relatively simple way to do it. Because the thing is, you don't really want to treat everybody the same, because it's gonna, at least at times, potentially make it so like there's guys that should be more than 50% owned in some situations. What I think you can do, like if you're not building basically custom exposure caps, is take the projected ownership and just like multiply each one by like 1.1 or 1.25 and use that as your exposure cap, because generally the field is pretty sharp in terms of their, in terms of projected ownership. So that'll at least give you some sort of good proxy on, where guys should be owned more or less.
I think Alex has even said that he would, or used to take it, times it by 2 as well, or just whatever multiplier you're comfortable with.
You could also take, you could also go in the boom bust tool and take like either the boom percentage or the optimal percentage and multiply it by 2 or whatever. Just something like that gives you at least some idea of, treats the players a little bit differently, gives you some idea of who the best plays are. So you're not just saying, like, well, I don't want more than 50% Jokic, but I also am cool with 50%. Arbitrarily making decisions, you're saying? Right. Yeah. Just using something like that as a proxy, I think, is a better way, because it'll at least open the door for you to get more of the best plays and less of the not as good plays.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you run like are you running an unadulterated crunch first to see what it would look like without any caps, and then setting them just to see what you're getting? If it were just like, say if you're getting 100% or 80% of someone.
Yeah. I mean, that's another way to do it, is like you could run it with like, 100% randomness or something, and then say, like, okay, well, these are how these guys are showing up, so I'll set their caps there or something like that. I think the easiest way probably is just either to use the projected ownership, or probably even better to use the optimal percentage from the boom bust tool, and then just multiply it by something to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room.
That's good advice. That is a super chat. That's a $5 well spent, and hopefully that helps some other people as well. Hey, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. We got a ton of people signing up for it right now, and I know some of you are still on the fence. No reason to be, but if you haven't signed up at Yahoo yet, you should. They ran some crazy contests yesterday on Thanksgiving. They've got a ton of Black Friday contests today. 33 over a third of the field getting paid out on most of their big contests. I think all of their big contests are over a third of the field getting paid out today for Black Friday. But before you do, use the link in the description, or the one our producer Tyler is about to throw into the chat, because when you sign up using that link and deposit $10 or more, but only has to be $10, and enter a paid contest, they will send us your information, your email, and we will email you with a free month of Awesemo Plus, $90 value, everything on the site, from football, basketball, hockey, PGA, MMA, you name it, esports, anything you want, all the tools built by the #1 ranked DFS player and an amazing team behind the scenes. These guys win a lot. I know Sean's works on a lot. He just took another 60K home yesterday. Alex just took home like 300K the other day using these very tools. So if you want to check it out, the best way to do it, if you haven't signed up at Awesemo yet, and you haven't signed up at Yahoo and you've been thinking about it, use that link. Deposit $10, enter a paid contest, You'll be hearing from us. You get the Discord too with the office hours with the pros from Awesemo answering your questions, helping you better your game. Boom Bust tool, top stack. Adam's just talking about the Boom Bust tool with the optimal lineup percentages, everything for showdown, tiers, you name it. Lineup builder, all the stuff on the site, $90 value, totally free for the entire month. All you do is sign up on Yahoo, which is a solid site in itself, and play a contest over there. Deposit $10. And all the tools for Yahoo. We have tools for ownership, player projections, all that good stuff for Yahoo as well. So take advantage of that. Use the link, and hopefully we'll see you over there. All right, let's get to the next one. The fourth game on the slate, Toronto, Indiana. Pacers 4-point favorites. Pretty low total here, Adam. 210. Kick it off with the Toronto side, though. Anything? Oh, and OG Anunoby, by the way, questionable to play in this one. He's been out for about almost 2 weeks now. So Ken Birch also still out. What are your thoughts here at the top of this team?
Yeah, the Anunoby news I think is mildly important at the very least. I don't think it has too much of an impact on guys like Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam. I think they're going to get their minutes and they're going to get their usage and production regardless. I do think if Anunoby comes back, it has at least a little bit of a negative impact on Scotty Barnes, who probably gives up a little bit of usage, maybe loses some rebounding attempts, but also on Precious Achiuwa, who started last game, played 27 and a half minutes. He's only 4,100 on DraftKings, where you can roster two centers. If he's starting again today with Birch out and with Anunoby out, then he looks like a pretty decent value at low ownership. But if Anunoby comes back, then I assume he's sliding into the starting lineup in place of Achiuwa, and it's going to make it so Achiuwa isn't a particularly good option. So I think VanVleet and Siakam are just sort of secondary options one way or the other. I think if Anunoby is out, Barnes looks a little bit better, and Precious Achiuwa looks like a pretty good value.
Tyler, you just skipped like 3 games in the sidebar. Man, now people's nights are ruined. They will definitely be losing. It's
Jordan needs to start working on Fridays.
I'm just joking, man. What about is there anything else for Toronto, or should we talk about the Pacers? We got some Miles Turner questions in chat.
Yeah, I think we moved to the Pacers. I don't have a whole lot to say about Toronto. It's just another mostly healthy team, possibly fully healthy if Anunoby's back.
Yeah, you know what's cool about OG Anunoby is the OG has no periods in there.
Yeah, that took me a while to figure out when I was writing articles.
Do you know why?
I do not.
You want to take a guess?
I don't even know how those work, so I don't have a guess.
Neither do I, but I figured it out today.
Yeah, what is it? Because
I just figured all on my own too. I didn't even have to look it up, because usually if it was like OG, it would be, and not for him specifically, but it would be like Oscar Gary, right? Anunoby, which would be strange. You follow me? 2 different names?
Sure, yeah.
The OG is an abbreviation for just the first name. See
Okay.
what I mean? His name starts with OG. I don't know.
It. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm following. Okay.
Yeah. Tell your friends. I thought it was pretty cool. And I can't pronounce his first name, so I get it. I get the OG.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what his first name was, but then I just looked it up to save you that.
Good luck.
Yeah.
What is it?
I have no idea. I just did you a solid and looked it up on my own.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to say it anyway. But yes, that is my guess, at least. He didn't tell me personally. But where are you going with the Pacers? Brogdon's pulling the most love today, right ahead of Miles Turner. Both of them north of 10% on DraftKings.
So quickly, Taj Gibson out, Derrick Rose out, Mitchell Robinson will play for the Knicks. For the Pacers, I think this is pretty similar to what we saw from them last slate. The pricing has come down a bit as a result of that 3-game stretch where the starters barely played any minutes. But last game we got an overtime game, so you don't want to look purely at the minutes that they played, but you can look at the rotations and see that there was no reason to be, concerned after those 3 games where there were 2 massive blowouts and a massive benching. You got 41 minutes in regulation from Malcolm Brogdon last game. Sabonis had some first half foul trouble, but still, based on his rotations, looks like he's going to play 34, 35 minutes in competitive games. LeVert likely to play 28 to 30 minutes, somewhere in there. Turner 30 to 31. So it's just another spot where I think any of Sabonis, Brogdon, Turner, LeVert are good options in tournaments. I think Brogdon stands out the most at 7,500 on DraftKings. He's been about a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy in the games he's played with LeVert this year. Usage rate's down from when from when LeVert was out, but it's still around 23.5%. And he's just underpriced here at 7,500. So I think Turner is a good play. I think LeVert is fine. I think Sabonis is fine, but Brogdon's the number one guy for me from the Pacers.
Larry says you have to hit the like now just for the OG explanation. Listen, you write articles. I have to write the names all the time. You can't tell me it's never crossed your mind that he didn't have the periods in between the first name.
Did you know he was British?
Yeah. Have you ever heard him speak?
No.
Heavy British accent.
I found out the other day. I was just doing like some random Sporkle quiz or something. And I think it was like the top scoring players from different countries, and it got to Britain, and I was like, I have absolutely no idea. And then I was really surprised when he showed up. I have no idea if he has a British accent. I didn't know he was British either. But yeah, okay. That's I wonder if he does. Does anyone know? Any Raptors fans watch these games? Does he ever, does he call people mate? Isn't that Australian? No, they do it in England too, right? I have no idea. Yeah, Tyler's saying they don't. I had a close buddy. What are you talking about? You've been to Britain? Like, what do you act like you I had a very close friend whose parents were both British, and he called me mate all the time, and he called trash rubbish. Instead of trusting your parents' anecdotes, I'm going to trust our producer from Bumfuck, Texas, on what they say in Britain. He's emphatically being like, no, they definitely don't say mate over there. How do you know, dude? Okay. Now he's saying he's from England. That's just ridiculous. Do you have anything else you want to hit on for the Pacers? No, I think that's it. Okay. Atlanta Falcons. God damn it, dude. I do too many football shows. Atlanta Hawks coming in this one against Memphis. What's the spread in this game right now? They're 1-point dogs, 226 total too. That's a hefty one. That's the second highest on the slate. Although Atlanta not pulling a lot of ownership today. On the Memphis side, you at least have a little bit going to guys like Clark and Jaren Jackson and such. But if you want to cover both sides of this, I'm happy to listen. Who do you like from Atlanta? So Atlanta, I think, is pretty much correctly priced. They're mostly healthy. The front court is pretty appealing to me with Capella at 7,500 on DraftKings, John Collins at 7,300. Likely to see 32 to 34 minutes from both of those guys. Not pulling much ownership. Capella at 5%, Collins at 4%. They're just both guys that I like getting to in tournaments because they give you a high ceiling. Trae Young at 9,300, certainly a reasonable price tag on him. Cam Reddish at 3,700 looks okay. He's getting 7% ownership. Bogdanovich is okay. It's just a team where, again, they're I think they're correctly priced in the sense that they're not like wildly mispriced and they stand out like a Malcolm Brogdon or like half of Orlando or half of Minnesota, but they're not overpriced either. They're still definitely a path to success for these guys. So it's another team kind of like Phoenix, I guess, but a little bit more appealing than Phoenix, where I like getting to these guys, but it's just going to be tough to get to them in large amounts. On the Memphis side, there's a little bit more of a question mark here. We got Dylan Brooks back last game. DeAnthony Melton is questionable right now. If Melton comes back, that just kind of makes everything riskier because we don't know exactly how that rotation is going to look. If Melton is still out, then we can expect it to more or less look like he did last game. Dylan Brooks potentially plays 30 plus minutes. He's relatively expensive though. John Morant at 9,600 still gives you a high ceiling. Always prefer him when Brooks is out because his usage rate goes up, but 9,600 is still reasonable there. Jaren Jackson at 6,300 is fine. That is one spot though where I want to pay a lot of attention to ownership. Right now we have him projected for 12% on DraftKings. He's played a lot of minutes in a couple of games recently, but more often than not this year, you've seen him play around 30 minutes in competitive games where he's not in foul trouble. Then you have those games where he is in foul trouble. So he's still really volatile, and it makes me not love rostering him at relatively high ownership. But if it comes down a little bit, I don't mind getting to Jackson. Brandon Clark's pulling some ownership here as well. I don't think he's going to end up being that necessary on this slate, given that we're getting more value opening up in the Kings game. We might get more value elsewhere. We just got some potential value on the Knicks. But Clark has been playing more minutes. We've seen Tillman basically phased out of the rotation. Clark's taking some minutes from Steven Adams, potentially taking some minutes. potentially from Tillman. So 3,500 for Clark, I think looks decent as well.
Favorite options from this game?
Morant, Clark. I mean, I think the ownership pretty much tells the story. Like Morant, Clark, and Jackson on the Memphis side, but I'm not like in love with any of them, so I don't want to go crazy if the ownership's popular. On the Atlanta side, I like the salary on Trae Young, and I like mixing in some John Collins and Clint Capella.
Okay. All the people in chat acting like, no, they don't say mate. Like, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. So quick to judge, man. Look it up. I bet if you look up where it's used, it'll say it's used in Great Britain. Just go ahead, look it up. I bet it will. So with Washington and OKC, how you feeling about your Wizards this year?
Better. So they've been better than I expected them to be, going through a bit of a rough stretch now. If I remember correctly, they just got destroyed by the Pelicans, which wasn't.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah, lost by 25 at New Orleans. That's not a great sign, but I mean, they've been better than I thought they were going to be.
You like anything from them tonight? 6.5-point favorites against a bad OKC team.
It feels like a spot where I should like them more. Like you were saying, OKC is bad, but the pricing's just around where it should be. Bradley Beal at 9,100 is okay, but like I would rather get to Morant. I'd rather get to Trae Young. I'd rather get to DeJounte Murray, who we haven't talked about yet. I think the most appealing spot to me is probably the center position. Montrezl Harrell and Daniel Gafford 4,400 on DraftKings, Harrell 6,300. Neither one, like you shouldn't be too confident in neither one because there's going to be some games where they both just play like 24 or 25 minutes. Gafford 23, Harrell 25. But there's going to be other games where Gafford plays 20 and Harrell plays 28. There's going to be some games where it is 24-24 and Gafford ends up being a good play at 4,400. Harrell getting 5.5% ownership on DraftKings, Gafford getting 3%. I do like the volatility that these two offer. Obviously, don't play them together.
So with OKC, man, this team has been an absolute train wreck. And now Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is facing potentially another absence. What's weird here, though, is he went from being out to upgraded to questionable. So that's, I don't know. Usually when you see that, it means they're going to play. Just throwing it out there. When you go from out to questionable, you're saying, all right, coach, I think I'm good. Get me in. Now, is that necessarily the case? I don't know. So let's approach this from both angles then, Adam. If he ends up being out, is anyone's price point still favorable enough, given that he's been out a couple games so far, that we should be getting to them? And if he plays, what does that do to him and the rest of this OKC squad?
Yeah, if he ends up being out, there's still some value to get to here. Josh Giddey at 6,500 with guard and forward eligibility. He's fine even if SGA plays. But if Gilgeous-Alexander is out, he'll look even better because there's a little bit more playing time to go around, but more importantly, there's more usage. There's even more assist opportunities. Giddey already leads the team in assist percentage, but it goes up without Gilgeous-Alexander on the floor. So he'd look even better. Lou Dort at 5,200 would look good if Gilgeous-Alexander is out. He has about a 25.5% usage rate without Gilgeous-Alexander on the floor this year. But since last year, it's also about 25.5% in like 760 or 770 minutes. The question with Dort, of course, is his shot going to fall? But 5,200 for a guy that would likely play low to mid 30s and have a 25.5% usage rate is pretty appealing. So both of those guys look, I think, good, particularly if Gilgeous-Alexander is out. Baisley looks okay. Robinson Earl looks okay. But Giddey and Dort are the two I'd be most interested in.
Ryan Houston asked if leaving 9,000 is too much to leave on the table.
Yes.
Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot. We had a super chat earlier, too, from Schwab. This is such a... Appreciate you. This is such a tough question to answer when we're doing an 11-game slate and we've got 5 or 6 to go. Any tips for single entry tournaments on FanDuel?
I mean, just kind of the generic, like you want a lineup. The way Alex puts it, I think is best typically. Like your lineup is probably going to be like 2/3 popular plays and then 1/3 contrarian pieces. Like, play the best plays and then mix in 1 or 2 lower owned guys that still have, a high ceiling. But yeah, I mean, there's no like magic bullet to just like, picking a lineup or something.
Right. Ryan Houston also has, how about $10,000 to leave on the table? See, now you're getting close. The problem was you weren't leaving enough before.
Right. Yeah. I don't understand why you're spending more than half of your
Right. Like on a site like tonight, the only way to get different is I'm trying to leave 25,000. I'm come on. Anyway. All right, bruv. Let's talk about the rest of this slate. Boston, San Antonio, unless you got anything for OKC.
No, that's it. Just, Gilgeous-Alexander obviously is one of the bigger pieces of news we're waiting on.
Okay. Free content on the site too. All of our player projections for NBA, free, totally free. Are they player rankings? I think it's player rankings today. Yeah, player rankings. All the week 12 NFL player projections are free, and the NHL player projections free today. So you don't need to be a sub for any of that. You can just head over to awesemo.com if you want to check that out. And obviously use the promo code stuffing if you want to get the awesemo.com/promos is where you go. If you want to get all NFL Express Pass, last day to do that, NFL Express Pass for $1 single. All our showdown content, a ton of main slate stuff as well. All of the tiers content, all the showdown tools. You still got a bunch of showdowns coming up throughout the next week. So yeah, use that awesemo.com/promos. It's a phenomenal promo code, and it's only $1 to get the entire week of NFL Express Pass. So yeah, check it out. All right, let's keep this moving. The next one up, we got ourselves Boston and San Antonio. So if you're looking at ownership right now on Boston, Marcus Smart is pulling the most here. And then it kind of just nosedives. There's not much following that. 214 total. Boston is laying 4.5 on the road. The big thing though is like you got no Robert Williams, you got no Josh Richardson. So that does take some minutes out of the rotation. Is that just not enough at all of these players' respective price points that have been juiced up a bit over the past couple of days? Is that not enough to get the players at a high clip?
Yeah, the problem is that, like you said, for the most part, the salaries have already increased. I think Al Horford at 7,600 has a high ceiling here. There's the potential for him to play a few more minutes if this game's competitive. We know he's been a productive player this year. He has power forward eligibility on DraftKings. I like that play in tournaments, but it's not a huge priority. Tatum at 10K certainly has a ceiling, but with Jaylen Brown in, I'm not going on my way to get there. Dennis Schroeder played a ton of minutes last game, but he's priced up from the games that Brown missed. So you kind of like need him to play 33 minutes, and there's no guarantee he does. So that's a pretty tough sell. I agree with the field here that Smart is the top option from Boston. He hasn't been great this year. He only has about a 15 to 16% usage rate, but that's likely to come up at least a little bit over the course of the season, just based on what we know about Marcus Smart in previous years. But he also contributes defensive stats. He gets some assists. He plays a ton of minutes. So getting him at only 5,400 is just a spot where, not to say he can't fail, but he's kind of just priced to his floor. And I think that there's still the potential for him to relatively easily go for 35 DraftKings points. He's at 0.81 DraftKings points per minute this season with only a 15% usage rate. So plenty of room for him to improve. I think he's just a little bit underpriced. And this is a fast-paced Spurs team this year.
Would you say you have any players for Boston that you really like tonight?
Smart would be the closest thing to that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, on San Antonio, if you flip this to the other side, this should be a competitive enough game. But the Spurs right now, Jakob Poeltl's been back. You got Keldon Johnson, Derek White, all three of these guys pulling mid 5K price points on DraftKings at least. Is that just good enough pricing to get there? Because the funny thing about this team, and I always find this hilarious, like with the Kings, we had this be the case before. I think De'Aaron Fox was hurt. Maybe it's before he even played, where there was nobody above 5,500 on the entire team. With this team, outside of DeJounte Murray, they are all cheap options, and Murray's expensive. That's it.
Yeah, I think that like the spot against Boston isn't great, but I think this is one of the softer price teams that we have. Jakob Poeltl still 5,700 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. He came off the bench in his first game back from COVID, played 15 minutes, followed that up with 31 minutes in the start. Last game he started, played around 29 minutes, but he lost about 4 to 5 minutes at the end of that game to garbage time. So he is just playing full starters minutes now. For the season as a starter, he's averaged about 30.5 minutes per game. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. He's just mispriced here, I think. So the only thing kind of working against him is that he is a center, but the salary is really cheap. Keldon Johnson is cheap at 5,500. You have Devin Vassell out. You have Doug McDermott out. So there's plenty of wing minutes available here. Johnson played 35 minutes last game and left like 4 minutes on the table. You could certainly see 36 minutes here in a competitive game at a cheap price tag. So I like going there. Derek White at 5,300 has been pretty disappointing this year. He's around like a 0.85 to 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. Playing time has been up and down, but I still think that's a reasonable salary. I think that I prefer Pirtle and Johnson before I get to White, but no real issues with White at 11% either. Lonnie Walker at 3,800 potentially steps into a bigger role here with Vassell and McDermott out. Similarly, Ketabich Diop has been starting with McDermott out. He's 3K flat. He's around 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. Hasn't been playing a ton of minutes in his starts. Only played about 17 to 18 minutes last game, including garbage time. But taking Vassell out means that there are minutes available that could potentially go to him. So I think I probably don't want Walker and Bates Diop together because I think that there's a good chance that they cut in to each other's minutes. Like if one of them plays well, the other plays less. But I think either one of them has the potential to offer some value. And then you get to the actual best player on the team, DeJounte Murray. I had mentioned him earlier, liking him a little bit more than Beal. It's not a great spot, but this is someone averaging 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. He rebounds at a high level. He gets assists at a high level. He has a mid-20s usage rate. He's just a really good player, and he's likely to play 36 minutes if this game's close. So kind of uncomfortable how much I like San Antonio tonight.
Dude, DeJounte Murray is becoming a fantasy star this year.
Yeah, I said on the show this morning that I think 9,600 is like underpriced for him, which seems weird, but
he's not going to be a 35% usage guy, but he's got a high assist rate. He's always been a well above average rebounder for a guard. You just never hear about it because Westbrook was the one pulling down 15 rebounds a game. Like he's one of the best rebounders in the game.
He's also averaging 2.8 steals per 100 possessions.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, these type of stat sheet stuffers are the guys that you're willing to pay for. He has what? Look, he's averaging close to a triple double over his last 5 as well. He just puts up big numbers, man, across the board. And I'm not willing to say yet that he's got a exceedingly high floor because he does have some of those ugly games, but generally you're getting big minutes and big production from Murray. The only thing, it is a pace down spot. There's no doubt about that. How much, I guess it doesn't matter too much, right? Because I don't know. I mean, the Celtics are averaging like 98 possessions per 48. So
yeah, like you would obviously prefer that it'd be a faster paced game, but it's just interesting to me. Like this year, Murray's averaging 1.31 DraftKings points per minute. Obviously not relevant to this slate, but James Harden is averaging 1.35 and he's like 11K every time he steps on the floor. Jason Tatum is averaging 1.22 and people look at him at 10K and they're just like, oh, that's a decent price tag for Tatum. So, I think that you don't quite have the same name value on Murray yet, but he's producing at a level that is just better than most of the people priced around him. You have him priced in the same range, a little bit more expensive than Beal. Beal this year is at 1.13 DraftKings points per minute. So you're talking, excluding matchup, but 0.2 of a fantasy point per minute better for Murray. John Morant is in that range, I think. But the point being, like, it's just he's really, really good, and I think he fully deserves this salary.
I agree with you. I don't see why he wouldn't. He's $40 on Yahoo, sponsor of today's show. On FanDuel, you've got DeJounte Murray at, what is he, 97? It's really not that bad. I'd say he's reasonable pretty much everywhere. Who are your favorite options for San Antonio if you had to prioritize them? Because it sounds like you like them a lot today.
Yeah, I do like them a lot. It's either Pirtle or Keldon Johnson is my favorite. I think Pirtle projects better, but you also have him at center, so it's a little bit more difficult to roster him. But they're at the top for me. I think then Murray, then probably White, and then throwing darts at Lonnie Walker and Bates Diop.
Milwaukee and Denver. Let's get to this one. Now, Jokic we'll talk about just a second, but you've got Milwaukee on the road, 3.5-point favorites, 214 total. This game will be a whole lot more fun if Jokic is playing. But to start with the Bucks first, Giannis, like if you're playing Giannis, you're paying for him. He's 11-7 on FanDuel. He's 12-2 on DraftKings. Over on Yahoo, you've got him coming in at 58, which is, crazy expensive. 58. So that's what? Like 25% of your salary, more than that. That's That's almost 30% of your salary on Yahoo going to Giannis. It seems like a lot, Adam, but I know you felt this way a lot this season. If Jokic plays, you just kind of go there, right?
Yeah, it's just really difficult not to. It's not like it's a great spot for Milwaukee going up against Denver. They're a slow team. They play well defensively. It's in Denver. But mostly it's just the salary on Giannis. You know, he's really, really expensive, and he deserves it. I mean, he's great. He's around 1.7 DraftKings points per minute. But when you have Jokic, assuming Jokic plays, who is averaging nearly 2 fantasy points per minute and is less expensive, it makes it difficult to get to Giannis. Then when you also just have a lot of mid-range guys underpriced, it makes it kind of difficult to get to Giannis. So it's just a situation where, you know, if I build lineups that look good and have Giannis, I'm going to be happy because I think Giannis is great. But I have a hard time going out of my way to prioritize Giannis given all of the other options I have on this slate. And I think that's reflected in the ownership. He's projected for 3% ownership on DraftKings. Anytime you can get Giannis at 3% ownership, it's not like it's bad. But, you know, Josh and I kind of had the conversation this morning. He said he was thinking that maybe with kind of the mid-range pricing being the way it is and people not getting to people like Giannis, he wanted to start kind of going more contrarian and getting Giannis in. And I said that I think it's just still really difficult, especially on slates of this size, because you're going to end up with high upside mid-range players that are low owned that you could go to. So instead, you're just going to like go on the stars and scrubs build when the pricing doesn't really dictate it. And it's going to put you in a really difficult position to win. So certainly not going to talk anyone off Giannis. He's great, but I think it's going to be tough to get there.
It is. I mean, if ownership bears that out too. Guess what his projected ownership is on Yahoo right now? 3.8.
Yeah, that's and I mean, and that's with all the value available.
Yeah. Well, he's 30% of the cap. That's crazy, man. Maybe that's
$15,000 on DraftKings.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's an insane amount to spend for one player, especially when you can get others at a discounted price. So, you know, $5 on Yahoo is pretty significant. But anyway, he's only 2.5% on DraftKings. So I get what Josh is saying for sure. But you're saying, like, even if that's the case, even if you're trying to be different there, you might still just be building suboptimal lineups.
Yeah, it's a situation where, to me, like if this were, I don't know, a 5-game slate and somehow Giannis was, you know, Giannis was still just not getting ownership, I'd be more inclined to take that approach. But with all the games that you have here, there's just going to be low-owned guys in the mid-range that have high ceilings. And so kind of the way that I put it this morning, you know, Josh was like, I would just love to be getting to Giannis those times he scores 75 fantasy points and is a must-have. And my thing is, if he scores 75 fantasy points, that's obviously really good, and you're glad you have it. But on a slate of this size, with the mid-range pricing being what it is, I wouldn't even say it's a must-have. Like if he scores 75, you can win without him, I think, because you're going to have 7K and 8K guys go for 50, 55, and you can potentially get there. And if Giannis goes for 55 at 12-2, you're just absolutely drawing dead.
I get it. Justin Wilson says, take Giannis and leave 9K on the table. Strong. And what's up? EMAC in the chat. Eric Linkvist back from his honeymoon. Mike Lawrence in the chat. Man, it's a game of who's who today. Rinpack in there as well. All right, doing big things on the show today. Almost 2,000 watches. What do we need for 500? 59 likes to 500. If you haven't done so, man, just get us there. You can be one of those special 59 to get us to 500 likes. Before we turn this one over to Eric and Terry for Live Before Lock, taking you up till tip. Do you like anything from Milwaukee?
Not really. Holiday at 6,800, Porter's at 7,100, I think would be the first two spots I get to, but there's still a pretty long list of guys I have ahead of them.
How about on the other side of this one, talking about the Denver Nuggets with Jokic? I mean, obviously him playing would make a huge difference in everything. So let's start with that. If Jokic is on the court tonight, active, not limited, comes back from his 3-game hiatus, where does he fall for you in terms of priorities?
Pretty damn high. He's just so good. And like he's expensive, but he's not the same level of expensive as Giannis. He's averaged, without Porter on the floor this year, he's averaged 1.95 DraftKings points per minute. If you go back to last year and take off Murray and Porter, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's like 1.8 to 1.85. I'll pull it up now. But he's just on a completely different level. I'm not expecting him to be limited if he does come back. He only missed about a week. It was a wrist injury as opposed to a lower body injury. So I don't really see any reason to think that he's not playing his full 34 or 35 minutes. So if I am paying up for somebody, I expect it to be Jokic. Right now, we only have him projected for 4.5% ownership on DraftKings. That has to be factoring in that he's questionable somehow, because if we got him ruled, like if we know ahead of time that he's going to play, I don't think there's any way he's low on. Or at least that low.
Would you say get to 1,000 likes and we'll run a Cyber Monday promo? All right. That's Rimpack. Man wins a lot playing DFS. He also does a ton of our marketing. So, all right. Sounds good. We're probably going to run one anyway. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea, actually. But Dave Jones, thanks for the super chat. He says, hey, Dave and Adam, what teams do you target? You're killing me, Dave. What teams do you target in DraftKings and FanDuel tournaments? That's why we're doing the show, man. Am I misunderstanding this?
Yeah, I mean, I think just, I guess, to summarize it, like,
yeah, like who are your favorite teams, if that's the question?
Minnesota's pricing looks good. Orlando's pricing looks great. I think the Spurs are pretty underpriced. Sacramento, we haven't gotten there, but they're going to look good. They're missing 2 starters.
Okay.
And playing the Lakers, which makes everybody look good.
Thanks for the super chat, Dave. And in all seriousness, you can always go back to any games. That's why we got Tyler Xander. Jesus, easy for me to say. Tyler Xander working the sidebar, so you'll always know what game we're at. Unless he skips ahead 4 games again, we should be in good shape. But anything, it's funny too, because if Jokic is out, then we have to determine this madness again, Adam. Like Jeff Green had a huge game last time against Portland. We talked a decent amount about Zeke Naji. He played 15 minutes, but gave you 20 fantasy points at minimum salary. If Jokic is out, any priorities?
Kind of all of them to different extents. Like as a whole, they were really disappointing last time out. Jeff Green went nuts, but Aaron Gordon was really bad. Will Barton wasn't great. But overall this year, without Jokic or Porter on the floor, Barton's at 1.06 DraftKings points per minute. Gordon's at a fantasy point per minute. JaMychal Green is at 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. Jeff Green is at 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute, but would likely see a little bit more playing time. So it's just a situation where, fortunately, I fully expect to have a lot of roster spots still open going into these games because of the fact that there's just appealing late games tonight. So if Jokic is out, you're going to want to late swap to more of Barton, Gordon, either of the Greens. If Jokic is in, I don't think any of those guys look particularly good.
No, agreed. You got anything else from this one?
Nope. Obviously pay attention to Jokic's status. For whatever it's worth, I'm expecting him to play tonight. He came really close, it seemed, to playing last time. Warmed up without his brace. One of the Denver reporters tweeted that Jokic was warming up looking like he was ready to play. He was running like suicides right before the game, and then they ruled him out. But they said on the broadcast that Jokic, basically they just said that it was like a formality that he's going to play his next game. I have no idea who said that or where it came from or how legitimate it is, but everything seems to be pointing to him being very, very close to being back. Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. It felt like he was definitely close last game, so hopefully that continues. Let me rip through this because we got 3 games to go, Tyler. Awesemo Hall of Fame. Shout out to all the people that are rocking the Awesemo avatar. Get your love on Twitter. Get your love here. Join the Hall of Fame. Be inducted and join us forever. You'll always be a part of this. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/avatar, download the avatar, use it wherever you want. Yahoo, FanDuel, DraftKings, doesn't matter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and hit us up at Awesemo HOF on Twitter. Include Adam, myself in that. Why not? Give us a follow while you're at it too. But no, really, tweet us at Awesemo HOF with your win. Finish top 3, field of 5,000 or more, and get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value. Not to mention, we'll shout you out on here. You'll catch all that love on Twitter as well. Just like we got for Vetro right here, 2,100 in the showdown, 400K play action. And like we got for our boy Jay Styles, 901. By the way, this can be a mini max. You can enter 10 cent, doesn't matter. You finish top 3 in that 5,000 plus field. you're still getting. So even if your win is less than the value of the monthly subscription, we still got you. And then Bolts 13,500, no better sport than NBA DFS. He says Peter Hanley's back, $10,000. This dude, he'll be on the real wall of fame. I'm going to put something up on my wall back here for these insane heaters. $34,000 from Peter. Again, guy is just crushing it every day of the week. What was that? 45,000 in a night. And then to wrap it up, Dave DeRemer, not bad, dropped third late in last game, but I'll take it. And over $1,000 profit on the day. Dave's had a nice run as well. So congrats to all of you. Let's get more of these up here tonight. Get some big winners up on the Hall of Fame page for tomorrow. Awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet us at Awesemo HOF. All right, let's talk about New Orleans and Utah. Biggest spread on the slate, Adam. 13 right now. Utah favored at home, 217.5 total. Kick it off with the Pels if there's anything here that you want to talk about.
I think that they are very interesting in tournaments. I think that they are very risky. This is about as bad as it gets. They are bad. They're going into Utah as massive underdogs. The reason I think that they're kind of appealing in tournaments is that if they're able to hang in this game, there's a really good chance that Brandon Ingram is destroying an $8K price tag, or Jonas Valanciunas is destroying an $8,900 price tag. We know that both of those guys, Ingram has about a 30% usage rate this year. Joe Val's averaging about 1.25 fantasy points per minute in the games that Ingram has played. So at virtually no ownership, I don't mind getting to them, but they certainly aren't priorities here. The spot is terrible. Josh Hart at 5,600 is projected to be the highest owned guy from the Pels on DraftKings. I think that makes sense just because if the game's competitive, he's likely to play a lot of minutes and just, get there by assists and rebounds, but, still not a great play. But one other thing to mention here is that Guillermo Hernangomez appears to have surpassed Jackson Hayes in the rotation. And so I think there's a couple of things to point out. One, you shouldn't look at the last two games and conclude that he's splitting minutes with Joe Val or anything. 2 games ago, Joe Val was in massive foul trouble, so Hernangomez played a lot. Last game was a blowout, so Hernangomez played down the stretch. But Hernangomez went from 4,300 on DraftKings last game to 3,500 today. This is certainly a game that could get out of hand. And Hernangomez is the type of guy where whether it's foul trouble or blowout or whatever, if instead of playing 15 or 16 minutes, he plays 21 or 22, he can give you a very good game at 3,500. He's currently projected for no ownership. So I do think that is a risky but kind of appealing spot to get to in tournaments, especially if you're going to see ownership go to guys like Len and potentially Nick Richards in that price range.
I like that a lot. I mean, he's averaging 1.63 DraftKings points per minute in the handful of games he's played this season. He's always been a good enough per minute producer. So, yeah, it's
a situation where if he were to get 5 or 6% ownership because people are game log watching and thinking he's just splitting minutes now, I would absolutely hate the play. But if he's going to be 2% owned, I think it's fine.
Okay. Anything else?
No, not from that side.
What about Utah?
Utah is pretty much the same as they always are. They are healthy. Mitchell and Gobert look like the 2 top options for me. 8,200 on DraftKings, 9K on FanDuel for Gobert, a spot where he should have plenty of success. He's around a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. Mitchell also around 1.3 DraftKings points per minute at 8,400, looks pretty good. Any of Conley, Bogdanovich, Clarkson have upside at their prices as well. Probably don't want more than one of these guys unless you're running it back with Ingram or Joval. It's just kind of hard to see how Gobert plus Mitchell give you tournament winning scores at their salaries if nobody on New Orleans is going nuts.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's talk about Portland and Golden State then. You had the Portland Trailblazers, 6-point dogs, 224.5 total, going up against a Golden State Warriors team that has the best defensive rating by a pretty wide margin in the league. They're just a good team. They play at a pretty neutral, top 10, I think, pace, 6, 7. Yeah, they're playing an elevated pace, but good defense to say the least. Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, any of these guys stand out to you at their price points?
I wouldn't say stand out. I think McCollum is my favorite between the two. He's almost $2,000 less expensive on DraftKings, so just going to be a little bit easier to get to. I think the most interesting piece from Portland is probably Yusuf Nurkic, who is projected for 12% ownership on DraftKings. He's 6,200. He played 32 minutes last game. So we finally saw normal playing time from Nurkic, which is something we've been waiting for all year. But now you get this matchup with Golden State, where it wouldn't be surprising at all to see the Blazers go with a small lineup, give more minutes to Larry Nance, Nas Little play a little bit more. So I don't really have any level of confidence in Nurkic's playing time here, but he's cheap enough where even if he plays 24 minutes, he could certainly do fine. And if he does happen to play 30 minutes, he's likely to be a great option. So I do have some interest there. Similarly, I have some interest in a virtually unowned $3,800 Larry Nance. If they do play small and close this game without Nurkic, you're getting Nance at center, and that would be pretty appealing at 3,800.
Ryan Langley with the super chat. Adam, he says, gents, thank you as always for the great advice. You guys are the best in the biz. Better than the twat waffles on the other channels who can't pronounce names right. Hashtag overlords. Yeah, it's a solid word. Have you ever used? I don't think I've ever used that.
I don't think I have either.
I use smooth brain though.
Yeah, definitely working that one in a little bit more.
What about incel?
Yeah, that's you just learned that one. I've known that one for a bit.
I didn't just learn it. I just started to appreciate it more.
Okay, that's fair.
Twitter's a wild spot. What are the other ones? Cock, right? Cock's a big Twitter one.
What? Oh, Cock, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one more too. There's one more. A simp.
Yeah.
What are you, a simp? What a hellish place that Twitter is, but I've adopted some of them. I can appreciate them. I know you have to. Portland, do you want to? Okay, so we got Sacramento and LA left. Are there any spots in both of those games that you really want to spend a decent amount of time on? Because I don't want to shortchange anybody here before we turn it over.
I think we need to spend a lot of time on, or as much as we can, on Sacramento.
Okay, so then what about Golden State here? And then we can go to Sacramento.
Steph Curry's really good. He's going to be tough to get to. If you can get to him, then by all means, play him. He's really good. But again, Jokic, I think, is the priority in that price range, assuming he plays. Draymond, probably the easiest guy to get to from Golden State. Still wouldn't call him a priority, but 6,700 looks like a reasonable salary.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's talk about Sacramento then. Highest total on the slate, 229, Adam. They're 7.5-point dogs, but let's get into it. Yeah.
So Rashawn Holmes ruled out for the second straight game. Harrison Barnes is also out. So there's a lot of minutes available in a good spot against the second fastest team in the league that also doesn't play a whole lot of defense. Alex Len started the last game. He only played 17 minutes, but he also had 4 fouls. So don't know, maybe he would have played more. We know he's a good fantasy producer on a per minute basis. He's only 3K flat. So I think certainly worth taking a chance on in tournaments. You could potentially see Marvin Bagley play a bigger role here at 4,200. Definitely risky, but like if he's coming off the bench, risky. Maybe he starts. But he played 18, almost 19 minutes last game. He closed in what was a competitive game down the stretch, but the second unit basically was closing. It was kind of a weird lineup. But with Barnes being out, there is the potential for more minutes there. You have a really cheap Davion Mitchell. More minutes available for him now at 3,400. I like him as a value option. Buddy Hield's likely to play more minutes. He's only 5,800. I think he eats up some of Barnes's playing time. And then you have De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, both solid options too. So this is just a team where I think I'm going to be getting to a lot of different Sacramento pieces.
All right. We're 9 likes away from 600, by the way. Don't be a simp, please. Just get us to 6. Don't be a smooth brain. With the Lakers, as we wrap this up, turn it over to Eric and Terry, who take you up to tip. And shout out to Tyler for producing this show, by the way. Guys produced a lot on the Friday following Thanksgiving. Is there anyone, given that LeBron is expected to play once again, that you want to get to?
I have nothing here. Josh liked Anthony Davis a bit on FanDuel today. I think that's reasonable because the scoring is a little bit better for him, a little bit worse for Steph Curry, for example. But for me, with all these guys in, Davis is at 1.41 DraftKings points per minute when they all play this year. LeBron's at 1.25. Westbrook's at 1.16. It's a fine spot, but it's just really difficult on a slate this size where I'm already having trouble getting the plays that I really like. It's just hard for me to get to anything from the Lakers with all these guys in.
Okay. Well, hey, you guys are the best. once again. We'll see you back here next time. We got Terry, Eric coming up next. NBA Live Before Lock. Adam, final question. Favorite pay-up option if Jokic is out?
Curry.
Favorite value option right now?
I mean, if he counts, Wendell Carter Jr. If not, probably, like, if you mean like really cheap, probably Alex Len.
All right.
Or Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell could steal the ball like 12 times from Westbrook.
Joshua Chambers, before y'all head out, shout out to Laffy for winning me $5K yesterday for mentioning Jamal Williams not being a bad upside play. Good luck, brother. I mean, thanks for the super chat. Swift got hurt, so sometimes you just have to take that. Like that, sometimes that you have to treat that like a showdown slate, and that's exactly what happened. But congrats, Joshua. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you back here next time. Adam Share at Ship My Money DFS, myself at Laffy_D, and Awesemo at Awesemo_com. Peace.
God, we did a show yesterday. And he was
Tyler Xander.
And it looked like he was wearing a little sailor's hat. It was so funny.
Just
it looked
pitch.
like he was in a sinking submarine.
I don't even know what to say, but I know what to say now because we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock show presented by Yahoo Fantasy. I'm Eric Lindquist. Very excited to be back with you talking NBA, my baby. So excited to be here, but I'm not going to be the only guy giving you any analysis here. The main culprit that we're going to have for all of those goodies is going to be Terry McBride. You know him as at DigitalB21 over on the Twitter sphere. Terry, how you doing, my dude?
Doing pretty good, bud. I thought you were going to start us off with just a big g'day, mate, kind of a thing, but you did it off camera before we got on here. But some serious linguistic debate going on in the chat on the last one. We've got all kinds of new terms coming over from right-wing Twitter on the end of the last show. It's been an interesting one. So looking forward to getting into some of that and some basketball with you.
And with that, we're going to end the stream. We'll see y'all later. Yeah, no, I guess we'll talk some basketball here. Very excited. What's going on, everybody? Good to see you all here again. The usual suspects for my NBA return. Please hit that like button as well. I guess I did the NBA slate started yesterday with my boy Rinpack, and we're going to be sending that over too. It's going to have its own feed now on the podcast networks, on everything here at Awesemo. So I'm excited about that with him. We're going to be trying to just keep building that audience as well. Very excited to have such great feedback from everybody there. So if you leave a 5-star review over on that new feed, I think some good things might be coming down the pipeline next week as we start that up on Sunday night. But of course, you're all here to hear us talk about this slate that we have, this lovely 11 gamer. So I'm going to get right to it. Terry, what are some of the most notable things that you are waiting for in terms of news for this slate?
So we've gotten a few of the pieces that I was waiting on. I think the Nikola Jokic news is certainly a big piece that's still kind of lingering out there. I don't think we've seen the OG Anunoby news. We got his information on his actual first name, which was pretty cool in the last show. I didn't know that. The SGA news, I believe we haven't gotten in yet as well, so that's going to be a tricky one. We did get the Sacramento news. We got some Knicks news in, so these things are trickling in, but there's some important pieces out there still to come. So we'll see how it goes. It should be an interesting 55 minutes or so here.
Yeah, Rinpack does need to make a guest appearance on Live Before Lock sometimes, but however, it'll have to be a day that he's not playing 48 different sites and, out there crushing. It'll have to be a day he decides to play like one. We're going for one. That'll be great. Name that movie, Terry. You got it?
Oh, well, going for one?
Push-up scene. One. We're going for one, Steve Martin. No, okay. We'll get back to that one a little bit later. I'll let you think about it. You're the movie guy.
I know. That's why I'm stunned that I don't know what it's from.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let it linger a little bit here. Not that it'll distract you at all because you're a professional. One, we're going for one.
That's the only thing I'm going to be thinking about.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate for everybody else here, but let's get to it here. Yeah, no, we don't know if Joker is out or not. That's a big piece of news that we're waiting on. As soon as stuff starts coming down the pipeline, I'm just going to interrupt. That's just kind of what we do because we want to be reacting to this news. We had a great job by the guys, Laffy, Adam, the dynamic duo that they are, did a great job of breaking everything down on the front end. If you enjoyed that, if you're going to enjoy this content as well, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because that goes a long, long way for us, no doubt about it. But let's get to it here. Talking about guards here, I'm playing primarily over at our sponsor, Yahoo. And then I'm also going to be playing a little bit on DK, not as much on FanDuel, just kind of keeping it a little bit lighter because doing threes right out of the gate after not playing NBA for 2 weeks when I was over in Hawaii, it's nice to kind of ease our way back into it. But the point guard position, what was that?
I said, oh, were you gone?
Oh, I was gone. Did you notice? You didn't even notice, did you?
That would have been what was implied by the little pot shot I just took at you there that we obviously stumbled over. We're a little out of sync, I think, here. I don't know. It's usually I'm able to insult you pretty quickly and we just kind of roll with it.
Well, mommy and daddy are fighting at the dinner table. So here we go. Buddy Hield. He's been a contentious guy for me in the past here. He's sitting at the top of the projections. Davion Mitchell, a lot of Sacramento exposure. I think it makes sense that I'm going to have a lot of them because I love late swap. Gives me more opportunities to roster guys in later games, react to the Joker news. And I'm going to kind of be playing that a little bit. But who are some of the higher owned players over on DK, FanDuel that you're kind of looking at and identifying at the guard position?
Yeah, so I think the Sacramento guys make a ton of sense. You get Davion Mitchell at 3,400. He's going to see a decent little amount of minutes tonight. 27.4 is where we've got him projected. Over the last two, he saw, I believe it was 25 and 30 minutes. So kid's getting a little bit of run and definitely somebody that they want to bring along and develop. Yeah, it was 25 and 30 minutes over the last two, averaging 23.7 over the last three. At that price, he's got significant upside. We saw Harrison Barnes is out of this game. I liked Barnes quite a bit. The guy I think that's going to benefit the most from that is probably Buddy Hield in terms of the opportunity, and certainly a guy who can get hot and start knocking down some shots for us. He's got a 57.3% true shooting on the season, 11.3% assist rate, 7% rebounding share, 0.91 fantasy points per minute on 23.9% usage. Maybe he sees a little bit of an uptick on the usage. He's definitely going to see an uptick on the amount of run. It's just that everybody's going to be on him. He's at a pretty economical price, particularly on FanDuel, 5,300 multi-position eligible, 58 on DK. He's drawing a little bit less in terms of negative leverage. He's at a negative 4.9, but still 30% overall ownership is pretty aggressive. 25.9% optimal lineup rate in our boom bust tool here. Definitely somebody I want to have in the mix here. There are a lot of guard and forward plays though that are in that price range. So for me, he's kind of a mix and match where maybe I decide upside to take a little bit of an undercut, where on a lot of nights, shorter slate kind of a night, he might be more of a foundational piece for me. I think there's room to maybe go in some other directions, where if the field on FanDuel's at 44%, if I'm at 30, 35, I'm perfectly content with that. I don't think I need to get over on him, but it would depend on how things start coming out in the wash with some of these other plays. Some of the other guys in terms of the guard spot, definitely seeing some D'Angelo Russell, seeing some Anthony Edwards. Both of those guys have shooting guard on FanDuel. Russell has point guard and Edwards has small forward. Looks like they're the same eligibility across sites. So definitely getting to a fair amount of those guys for what I still think is an economical price. We've seen just very, very strong production from those guys over the last handful of games since Russell came back. Strong matchup too against the Hornets. Definitely a pace up spot. So I like those guys. I was getting to some guys from the other side of that game as well from the Hornets. For me, it was just more kind of dropping LaMelo into some high-end spots where I had some money to spend at the guard position. And then a guy that I wrote up this afternoon that I have liked all season long and just has not gotten the love from the public because he's expensive, DeJounte Murray, I think is a standout play again for positive leverage on both sides.
DeJounte Murray is a different human being. And your role changes. Derek White isn't as prominent as kind of what we were expecting. And obviously he was out there for a hot second, but DeJounte Murray is special. He's really, really good at producing fantasy points. So that's kind of what we're in the business of. So I'm going to roster him a lot over the field. So I'm right there with you as well. I think that that's a really a solid spend up option to be getting to here on this slate. Steph Curry, kind of a difficult guy. I mean, 11-4 becomes a lot more useful for me if you don't have Jokic, if you don't have another elite spend up option that's going to exist there on the board over on DK. And then LaMelo Ball, of course, at point guard, 10-3, has massive upside anytime he sees the floor. I'm really ticked off that I missed all the Damian Lillard games because I was gone. And now all of a sudden I don't have the opportunity to roster him. And, there's nothing to really extract out of a 9,800 tag. It would have been fun to get him cheaper over on DK, obviously still usable over on FanDuel, but it's not 8,300 like it was before I left, but such is life. I missed the boat on that, but I definitely like the DeJounte Murray call. I think that that's going to be a big part of my portfolio as well. Tyrese Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox, all of the usual suspects there from that Sacramento side as well. The Lakers are just not good defensively. I've talked about that routinely here with no Alex Caruso existing there. Such a weird piece that all of a sudden he leaves and their defense becomes terrible. But you're also adding Russell Westbrook into the fray, who has no interest in playing any defensive basketball. Anybody else that's kind of coming in lower owned on the board? Obviously, you have a biggie there in DeJounte Murray that we both like, but this Orlando situation, perhaps Jalen Suggs is coming around 15.6%. You have RJ Hampton, who's somebody else that could have some interest there. This entire Orlando team is projecting out really well in our tools. They're going to be very highly owned across the board. Is there any kind of a preference you have between maybe Suggs or anybody else there to extract value from?
Yeah, I'd like to take a moment to appeal to the DFS sites and just ask you guys to raise the prices on these guys so that we can stop playing them, because I am so sick of playing these guys. I'm sick of talking about them and writing about them, but their values every single day because they're always cheap. And for now, these guys are definitely getting a significant amount of run. So at the guard spots on the FanDuel slate, you get Franz Wagner thrown into the mix with shooting guard eligibility. So cross positional, it's small forward and shooting guard. I'm definitely interested in Suggs again here, getting a nice little optimal lineup rate and positive leverage on the FanDuel slate, negatively leveraged on the DK slate. He's only 5,200 over there, point guard and shooting guard, coming in 11.6% optimal, certainly in play, but I don't love it at negative leverage. And I feel like that might slip even further just as people are casting around for some value. You mentioned Steph before, and I feel like the leap from Steph from that next tier down from like the DeJounte Murray of the world up to that Steph piece still kind of needs one more value piece, I think, to me. It still needs somebody in the low 4K, the $3,000 range, in addition to the values that we already know are here. We've got Franz Wagner at 43 on DK. We've got Davion Mitchell, who we talked about, at 34. But it's a very mid-rangey kind of a slate to me. I think we're getting a lot of these $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 players and kind of mashing a bunch of them together. It was that way on both sites when I was running crunches earlier. So to get up to the really spendy stars, I think you need that extra value, or maybe you're sacrificing one of those mid-range guys or two of those mid-range guys, putting value pieces there to get to that salary. So it's a real game of what am I giving up on the upside from taking two pieces that I'm going to downgrade and then getting to an upgrade with a guy like Steph. So it's just an interesting trick of math on this slate so far.
Yeah, other than Mitchell, we don't have anybody that's like projected that's expected to be on like that 6x threshold. Right. I mean, Alex Len, Buddy Hield. So, we've had some slates where we've had either a Cade Cunningham a couple weeks ago. We've had some slates where it's just been like a Taylor Horton Tucker, pretty much that entire run where you just jammed a bunch of them in. I don't think that exists on this slate. I think it makes it very fascinating for tournaments. I mean, I think Davion Mitchell, by far the guy that I prefer out of anybody else here. There's just so many minutes that are up for grabs here. Seeing that 30 minutes here last time out as well in a competitive game against Portland, everything kind of bodes well with Luke Walton out of there. I think it bodes well for the entire franchise with Luke Walton out of there. But Alex Len may be another piece you can look at. But man, there's just not a ton of that elite value we've been looking at. So I think it makes sense. A lot of 5-6K plays. That's going to be where a lot of people land here. But that makes me much more interested in trying to get to some of these super ceilings and trying to play a little bit of sketchy value. And speaking of sketchy value, I don't know if we have any news yet on Malik Beasley starting here yet. 37 minutes. I don't expect 37 minutes here again for him, but he didn't start last time out and still got that crazy allotment here. I'm going to wait on that starting news. I would love to see him starting because I think I would just be way massively over the field on him in that spot. Somebody that Rinpack talked about a lot yesterday on the slate starter. But do you have any kind of interest in anybody under 4K at the guard position? Because I think Malik Beasley is definitely my priority there.
Yeah, Beasley for sure is a guy that I was kind of keeping my eye on when talking about we need another $3,000 piece for the DraftKings slate. 3,900 at the shooting guard spot definitely becomes interesting. He's somewhat interesting now with a 27.6 minute projection. I expect that probably leaps over 30% 30 minutes if we get him announced news that he's starting. He is at a 6.9% optimal lineup score. And it's one of those situations where we're forecasting ownership as if he's announced starting basically. So the ownership is a lot higher than what his optimal lineup rate would be in that situation. So I think the negative leverage might level off a little bit. You might also just see the ownership double with that and he stays negative leverage, but he becomes a much better play once we get that additional, 4 or 5 minutes of news. 0.73 fantasy points per minute for the season. You don't love to see that, but he's been down at 18.3% usage in his 25.4 minutes over the first 18 games. He was a 23.5% usage player last year and returned a 0.91 fantasy point per minute rate. That's perfectly fine. That's a strong advantage at 3,900. And so far this season, only a 47% true shooting percentage. So part of it is just locked into, some of the shots just not necessarily going down for him. A 9.7% assist share, a 5.3% rebounding rate. He could see an uptick in all those categories if he gets a start here. So I definitely like the Beasley play. Definitely pending a little bit of news. We want to get that locked in start, but I think he's definitely interesting on this slate.
Yeah, I just had Ryan DM me. It always helps to have friends in high places, and I think that works out well. He said that he doesn't anticipate Malik Beasley to start here, but he's still not concerned about it. So that's good confirmation to get from one Rinpack. Thank you, my dude, as always, looking out for me in every single facet of life. But I'm looking at the rest of the board here, and I have the right guy on the right show to be able to ask you my question, because on Yahoo, somebody that I'm getting to a lot, I think he's less of a talking point at 5K. I still think he's probably viable over there, but at the guard position, Kemba Walker with no Derrick Rose out there. Kemba Walker's $15 over on Yahoo. What do you expect out of this entire Knicks team? What can we kind of extract, if anything, on their side of the ball against Phoenix? Not a great matchup, but at home, I want to try to make Kemba Walker a thing again. Can I make him a thing?
I'd love it if he became a thing again. That would be fantastic. We've got him projected for a 29-minute night, and it's making him relevant on the DK slate at 5,000. He's got his point guard only across sites, same price across sites. And only on DK is he becoming relevant at that price. And he's got a significant optimal rate. Actually, you know what? That might not be true because I might not have updated the FanDuel side of this. So let me just talk DK. We've got him at an 8.8% optimal rate and coming in pretty low owned. And we've seen him his minutes have been all over the map. In the last 3 games, he's averaged 20.7, went 23 last game, 18 the game before that, and then 21, a handful, like 2021s. So we've been seeing him play in the low 20s, but without Derrick Rose, and then just with a bunch of guys in this on this team banged up, like they're not going to have Mitch, they're not going to have Taj again tonight. It's just, It's just a lot of ball to go around for the guys that are going to be on the court. And Kemba's going to be the guy with the ball in his hands, dictating where it goes. I think we can definitely see a nice assist night from him. 55.1% true shooting on the season, 20.9% assist share on the season. I think the assists definitely have an opportunity to go up here, given a little bit more run. So I like him. I think he's definitely a guy who can produce for us. Could he come out and produce that monster upside night? We've got him at a 26.9 median DraftKings point projection. Does he crack through to, is he a guy who's going to give you that 50-point night? Probably not, but he's got a 22.9% boom score probability. Is he going to get up toward that 40-point night? You could certainly look to that from Kemba. If he comes out hot too, there's always the idea that Tibbs is going to just give him some extra run, even on his old legs. So if he gets into the 30 and change minutes rate, it means that he's already playing well. The shot's going down. Like we saw a couple weeks ago, that one first quarter, we had like 17 points in the first quarter. You see something like that, typically, especially without Derrick Rose out there, he's just going to get additional run. But you also do have guys who can handle the ball if he's not playing well. So you could get Alec Burks running point Burks minutes. You could certainly see an uptick in Emmanuel Quickley's minutes. There are guys who can do things on the court with the ball. Julius Randle is a forward who can run the point forward and distribute the ball. So if Kemba's not playing well, it's a yo-yo. It's one that could certainly come down and start to hurt us if he just comes out and for whatever reason, the shot's not going down, a few turnovers early, whatever. So it's kind of a question mark. I haven't loved going to Kemba very much this season.
No, it's been abysmal. And fortunately, after like the first week, I just chose to hit eject on that. He had like maybe one good game in that stretch there, but the minutes haven't been there in a meaningful way. But now the minutes might be there for him. I think Yahoo $15 makes some sense to play him over there on DK at 5K. I'm probably just going to try to go elsewhere here still. That just kind of feels like my impression of that. But we got a Wolves starting lineup here. We're kind of wondering who was going to slot in there for Patrick Beverley. Ends up being Jaden McDaniels. So that's going to be not really super fascinating to me. He's 3,300 there on the DraftKings slate. I'm not really sure where he is anywhere else, but obviously he'd be the most appealing over there, but I still probably don't want to go too nuts with him. He's projected for 2% ownership. I bet it comes up a little bit, but I just don't see it being a huge talking point. Do you see anything out of this Wolves starting lineup that has any issue? I mean, obviously the main talking point, no Malik Beasley starting, and no problem with that after what Rinpack said.
Yeah, I'll absolutely defer to Rinpack on that one. He still likes him. It's good. It's a little contrary to what the sites tools were seeing. 9.3% optimal on FanDuel, 8.9% on the DK slate. But you got to love the price. And if you're picking between Malik Beasley and Jaden McDaniels, to me, I would just prefer Malik Beasley. Right? I know that different positioning on the various slates, but I trust that a little bit more, which is weird to say about a player like Malik Beasley. Yeah. But you're looking at Jaden McDaniels so far this season, 0.66 fantasy points per minute, 49.8 true shooting, not doing very much else, 5% assists, 7.7% rebounding share. Last season on basically the same usage at 11.8% was a 0.69 fantasy point per minute player. So there's just not a lot of meat on the bone there with Jaden McDaniels. So even with advanced minutes, we had him at 24.2. I'm not sure when this update came through, and he was only coming through 2% optimal on the DK slate, 0.8% optimal on FanDuel. No, thank you. The price is certainly fine if you need a building block piece, like I guess in a few lineups, if you wanted to mix him in. Is there upside from his 16 median projection into the mid 20s? Yeah, if that gets the job done for you, I guess you could see that, but it's not a play that I love. I think there's, there are some other spots to go in. Maybe you're paying a little bit more, but you're getting a significant amount more production from some other guys.
Anything else for you at the guard position?
Let's see.
It's such an open-ended question. It's an 11 gamer. I mean, it's just kind of throwing you to the wolves on something like that, but we're going to keep the show moving. And for me, like Bradley Beal's a guy that I'm getting to a little bit over, but not getting, he's 3.9%. I'm getting to like 12%. I don't think that there's anything drastic there over on the DK slate. I think he'd be even more appealing over on FanDuel, but everybody's softly priced on FanDuel, so it doesn't really matter. Brandon Ingram as well. But I mean, he's shooting guard eligible on DK now as well. But anything just in bulk, something that you might be looking at that we haven't discussed yet.
So we touched on Derek White in when we were talking about DeJounte Murray. Mm-hmm. Derek White is coming up as a reasonable play. He's a pretty solid play on the FanDuel slate. It's point guard only, 5,500, coming up 14% optimal and positively leveraged over there. On the DK slate, a little bit of a different story because he's 5,300, multi-position eligible at point guard and shooting guard, but under 10% optimal and efficiently owned. I like it a little bit better on the FanDuel slate. I wouldn't have much issue playing them in the same lineup. I don't love doing that, but if the prices work out, I'm fine with it. And I think they can both produce enough there. So he'd be in the mix for me. We also talked about Dame very briefly. I think CJ McCollum, by kind of the same token, guy in that highly totaled game going up against Golden State, which is a very good defense, but he's CJ McCollum. 7,500, probably a little cheap for him on FanDuel. 7,900, probably a little cheap on DK. Positively leveraged on DK, slightly in negative on FanDuel. Definitely a guy who can produce for us, and just as a option at that price, wouldn't be my first guy in, but if he's my fifth or sixth guy in, I think he makes some sense on a night when we're looking heavily into the mid range. As a spendy option, maybe Ja Morant grabs some shares going up against Atlanta. 9,000 on FanDuel keeps him a little bit relevant. 96 on DK. I don't like it as much. He's negatively leveraged though on both sides. So it's a pay up option where you're paying up to a guy that the field is already getting to. I'd prefer to spend that money on a guy who's not getting much ownership overall, not getting much negative leverage overall. So he's on the board, but not in an extreme way for me. Guy that we'll probably talk about when we get to the forward spot, but he does have shooting guard eligibility on FanDuel, will be DeMar DeRozan. I think another guy who's somewhat interesting. Adam made a really good point about the Chicago rotation in terms of if we're expecting a bunch of guys from Orlando and we need those guys to be playing well, that will give a rising tide effect to some of these guys in the Chicago lineup. So Levine, by that same token, would be in the mix.
All right, we got news Mason Plumlee out. That'll be fun to talk about here as we move over to the forward position. Oh boy, let's go. Let's start getting this 11-gamer ramped up. I like that news broke a little bit later. That's the first lock time, so we'll be able to discuss that on our 30-minute after the show Yahoo slate. I'm excited to be hanging out with Terry, my buddy Terry, who I haven't gotten to do enough shows with here in recent weeks. We were together all the time on the baseball streets, and so it's nice to be talking some hoops with my guy. Enjoy that, and we're going to be doing it for another 30 minutes, talking some Yahoo, but hit that like button once again so we can get some great Cyber Monday deals going here. It's the holiday season. It's officially here. We're less than a month. I mean, the 26th there today. We're right there, a month till Christmas. We also just got word SGA's ruled in, so that'll be another talking point here. Makes everybody on OKC a little less appealing. I'm just breaking news live online here, but we have a Black Friday deal going right now. It is Black Friday. NFL Express Weekly Pass right now. If you want to check out our NFL product, $1. It's $1. With the promo code STUFFING, STUFFING. Yes, I can spell. Isn't that great? This package includes player rankings, ownership rankings, everything we have to offer for NFL Showdown and single game contests, which I don't know if you've seen any screenshots from the likes of Jordan Lockhart, Alex Baker. All these dudes are just wrecking, and I mean wrecking, the NFL Showdown streets, and they're doing it with the projections that Alex Baker is helping make himself. So get the access to the premium tools and content for that, as well as in-season fantasy football stuff. Using that promo code STUFFING for $1, you get that weekly pass. Nothing better than that. So stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. All righty, let's get ourselves over to the forward position. But first, let's discuss some of the news that just rolled in. We got Mason Plumlee out. I think that kind of, we're going to wait and see what that starting lineup is. We should obviously be having that here soon. PJ Washington, who played all of a glorious 6 minutes out of the middle of nowhere. This will be an interesting starting lineup. That's all I can say about that. Miles Bridges, who's going to start? I really have no idea. But anything that you want to allude to before we get to forward here with that news?
TJ would be the guy that I'm kind of keeping my eye on. One of the beat writers also tweeted out something about Nick Richards potentially getting a start here. He'd be interesting, I guess, at 3,000 on the DK slate. He's 3,600 on the FanDuel slate. We had him projected at 6.7 minutes and he wasn't getting any. It's literally like zeros across the board. So we'll wait on the news there, see what happens. PJ is the guy that's more interesting to me. 0.96 fantasy points per minute last season, 0.98 in his limited action so far this year. So I think he'd definitely be a key piece. Miles Bridges is definitely a interesting player all season long so far, a 1.08 fantasy point per minute player, up from 0.89 last season. Just nice little breakout year here. So it might just be a situation where it just kind of casts more light for me on the Ball, Bridges, Rozier, and Hayward group, and then I don't really worry about the other spots. But we'll kind of see what comes out in the wash, because there are some interesting prices on, PJ Washington, 47, 49, even Kelly Oubre, 5,000, 4,200. So there's some interesting pieces in there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I got to see the starting lineup. It's going to look weird. Miles Bridges at the 5 just doesn't quite process. How tall is Miles Bridges?
I would have said like 6'7", 6'8", but
that's what I would have said too. So we're gonna use the old Google machine here quick. He's 6'6". He's even shorter than I thought. So I mean, how do you not play PJ Washington at the 5 here? I mean, Jalen McDaniels would be the other guy that could start, and at 3,100, he would be very fascinating to plug and play there as well. But even in the event that right now we have them projected 12.75 and 12.5 minutes, that's going to change here. Oh God, we just got the news. PJ Washington is starting. Mother of God. There we go. That makes it easy. That would be the guy. I just was talking through it and had to be the guy starting at the 5. I think he vaults up the board 30 minutes before lock. Yeah, he only played 6 minutes, but I really don't care. He's in the starting unit here. That was his first game back in 3 weeks. I don't know what those minutes can really get to, if he can get, 24 or so, but a guy who's been he's a fantasy point per minute producer. What do you think about PJ Washington now in the starting unit?
Yeah, I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. The 4,700 power forward and center eligible on the FanDuel slate, power forward and center eligible on the DK slate for 49. So it looks like it'll probably come in with a little tiny hair more value on the FanDuel slate on the blue side here. But definitely, like you said, basically a fantasy point per minute player. So if we vault him from the 14 minutes that we had him at, that was basically irrelevant, into the mid to upper 20s, that becomes much, much more relevant at that price. Could he just get squeezed out by the fact that he's joining a starting rotation that's already full of guys who are fairly busy? I mean, we're talking about Ball, Bridges, Rozier, and Hayward. If he's in that group of guys, that's 20% usage plus for each one of those guys, with Ball at 26.9 leading the way. So there's just a bunch of usage already going around. So he might not see as many looks, but if he's efficient, if he gets more rebounding opportunities, I think there's enough for him to do out there anyway, that the price is just going to be wrong for a starter's role here. So I do like the PJ Washington play. I'm curious to see where he comes in our next batch of projections updates in terms of our simulated slates, how optimal he becomes.
It really has to do with what you guess those minutes are. Yeah, they can play Jalen McDaniels. I mean, here's the thing. And as I'm just sitting here thinking about it too, if there's some kind of a minutes cap on PJ Washington, first of all, I don't understand why he wouldn't come off the bench. And if you're only going to play him for 15 minutes, 16 minutes, why wouldn't you have it be with either Ball, Bridges, Hayward, or Rozier off the floor? I don't understand why you would just start him. But again, I'm not coaching this team, so there's that. But I got to be still thinking Jalen McDaniels is a guy that I still want to get to, because 3,100, he could play 20 plus minutes here. And if there is any kind of a minutes cap for, and they're both cheap enough, I don't worry about getting them in the same lineup. But if there's a minutes cap on PJ Washington, just, inherently thinking about it with it being his second game, Jalen McDaniels is going to have to be out there a lot. And I mean, a lot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, for the price, it makes a ton of sense. There's definitely the idea that he could get out there for extended run. And basically, if you're taking not anybody in the league, but if you're taking a wide cross section of the league and putting them at a low price like 3,100 and giving them that kind of run, it just makes sense that you're going to be able to get some kind of production out of them. 0.83 fantasy points per minute. So if you cast that into the mid 20s at 3,100 at the power forward position, absolutely, he's going to pull in some value here. So I think it makes some sense. That said, it looks like we did just get an update in, so let's see if any of that came through in the update.
I just did an update. I put 22 minutes for Jalen McDaniels, and I'm getting a crazy amount of him. Not Jaden. Again, so great that we have Jaden and Jalen in the same game. Both one starting, one not. So confusing. I don't even know what's going on here. But Jaden McDaniels in our last run up to 5%, 18.86. I don't think he's a necessary piece, but I'm getting to a lot of Jalen McDaniels. So what are you seeing right now with the update?
That is about to go into my sheet here. And actually, I tried to search it on the webpage before dropping it into my sheet, and I accidentally landed on Jaden. It actually looks like the Jalen one hasn't updated yet. So we'll get back to that one.
Okay,
but I think,
cool.
Yeah, I think as a price play, it just makes a lot of sense at that. At that
Jaden McDaniels starting for the Timberwolves. Jalen McDaniels for Charlotte Hornets, the guy that I think could play a ton of minutes. And so I'm just, again, talking myself into playing a terrible value play in the first game, first game right off the bat. Pretty much everything that I'm against in life. I wait for late swap, especially on an 11 gamer. But, if I want to get any kind of stars in Scrubsy, I'm going to try to force some things to get to more Jokic, more Steph Curry, more Giannis. God, Giannis so hard to get to today, but let's talk forward. How about that? We'll keep this train moving here, get it back on the tracks. But that was a very important talking point. SGA, I think it's kind of inherent that OKC, everybody looks a little bit worse with him in the lineup there. And he's not exactly somebody that I'm beating down the door to roster here either today. But let's look at the forward position because, Buddy Hield, shooting guard, small forward eligible over on DK, 33.6%. God, it's so uncomfortable. It's like the first time I've ever liked him on a slate, and he's 33% owned. Just what in the world? Anthony Edwards, fantastic play at 7,500. We've now seen nearly 70-point upside in the last 2 weeks out of him and twice. So, definitely somebody to roster here. Wendell Carter, Franz Wagner, so many good plays on this mid-range here between 4K, 8K, everybody up and down the board. Who are some of your favorites that you're looking at getting to the most?
Yeah, I was getting to, when I was running crunches earlier, I was getting to just giant shares of Wendell Carter. Just plays into that Orlando story where it just is a bunch of guys that are very cheap, and we just know we're going to book some minutes. He's I got to interrupt
you. I apologize. OG Anunoby ruled out.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not totally unexpected there.
No, not unexpected, but we had him projected in here at Awesemo. So I'm just kind of, and we're at the forward position. So I guess maybe I didn't need to cut you off. I'm a jerk like that. Again, we're just getting back in sync, easing the tension, baby. A little bit of that. But
he was such a popular guy just conversationally in our previous show that it just made sense. And small forward, power forward on FanDuel, small forward, power forwards. It made sense to cut me off there.
Yeah, I was going to say, good day, mate. Yeah, whatever. Freaking Australian, British, you guys are just insane. Whatever. I loved the conversation. So OG Anunoby out. Do not play him in lineups. Play more of your Precious Achua. Your Scotty Barnes is really, really overpriced. Probably tough to still get to him. But Pascal Siakam, 8,300, probably more appealing. I'm trying to see what to exactly extract out of all of that too here. I'm going to run some stuff and get back to you there. But let's talk about the rest of this forward position. Just continue where you were.
Yeah, I totally forget where I was, but just to go to tag off what you were saying there, for me, anytime we're taking one of the prime players out of that Toronto lineup, the only guys that really makes me interested in, unless we get one of the extreme value guys like Svi, if he was inserted into the starting lineup, let's say at 3,700, could become interesting. But usually for me, it's just a little bit of an uptick to like the Van Vliet and Siakam plays, and then that's it. I'm not really looking to get over the top on Scotty Barnes. I'll take some shares, no doubt about it. He's 8% optimal on the FanDuel slate and positively leveraged, a little bit less than that for a little bit more money on the DK slate. But those are guys that are just kind of mix and match options to me. And maybe I give a little bit of a nudge to Van Vliet and Siakam, but it's nothing extreme here. This team is just, they always come in appropriately priced. They always come in around the appropriate level of ownership. And that's kind of what I'm seeing again. We might see somebody jump to the top of the board, but it's nobody that really stands out for me there. I think what I was saying before was Wendell Carter Jr. coming up quite a lot in terms of just one of those Orlando guys, and he's appropriately priced, 5,500 for inappropriately priced, 5,500 for a guy who's producing 1.06 fantasy points per minute for the season, 59.7% true shooting, 14.2% on the assists, 15.7% on the rebounds. That's a monster season so far for him. So he's a nice producer there, power forward and center eligible, so you can move him around the board. There's a lot of pieces like that. I was getting to a good amount of like Bobby Portis in kind of the same role on the FanDuel slate, power forward and center for 6,500. FanDuel still slow on raising Bobby Portis's price. We've got him projected for a 31-minute night. In 28 minutes a game, he's averaging 1.11 fantasy points per minute, giving us an 8% assist share, 13.8% rebounding, 59.6% true shooting. Love getting Bobby Portis, particularly as like a Giannis alternate, right? Like I get me a little Giannis like my lineups where I can't get to Giannis. I'm happy to do that. Not that he's actually that player, but in terms of the fantasy production, we can kind of look at him that way. So I'm getting to some of him, definitely getting to some Edwards. I mentioned him before in the guard spot. Very interesting on the DK slate at 7,500 with guard and forward eligibility. Move him around to 5 different positions in that lineup that you're building. 20.9% optimal, definitely on the board. And I'm kind of willing to ignore the negative leverage over there, just given his point scoring upside, I think is pretty significant. Giannis, anytime I can get to him, anytime I can afford him in a lineup at these astronomical prices, I love getting there. But like I kind of mentioned up at the top of the show, it's just a slate for me that was falling heavily into the mid-range. So you've got to make a couple key decisions in terms of just being able to get to some of these guys.
Well, yeah, I think we might have some news that might make it less so. So Trae Young got downgraded to questionable here alongside Bogdan Bogdanovic. So Atlanta up against Memphis in a game with a 226 total. We could be looking at Lou Williams. We could be looking at DeLon Wright. We could be looking at Kevin Huerter. We could be looking at Cam Reddish. I mean, that's a big piece. So obviously Trae Young, you take him off the floor, everybody would become much more appealing. There's no doubt about it. We'll have time to be able to see the starting lineup, but for me, that's kind of good news, I suppose, because I love playing the late swap game and trying to figure out exactly where I want to mix and match my shares. People just aren't as active as they should be after lock. We're 20 minutes before lock here right now. And, seeing that news comes up, that game starts in an hour and 20 minutes. I think you're able to react pretty easily to what that starting lineup looks like. Right now, I have a minimum of 2 kings that I'm putting into lineups simply so that I get more placeholders. I think I was already going to naturally fall into that. That game starts at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. So talking about it from a late swap perspective, as long as you're getting more pieces late, which I think you should be, you've got them late. You've got Denver, obviously, in the later window as well there at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We should have some spots to be able to mix and match and maneuver. This is going to be your lineup should look very different after lock than what they look right now. Would you agree with that, Terry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a lot of movable parts. This is all my fault for asking for several more value plays at the top of the slate or at the top of the show, because clearly we just landed on a whole pile of values from just kind of every corner at this point, except for the Oklahoma City with SGA being ruled in. So we've got some interesting pieces of news here now. Just pulling up Wowie real quick, looking from December of last year, taking Trey, Bogdan, and DeAndre Hunter off the floor. The usage leader in 641 minutes in that situation by a decent amount. Looks like, usage leader becomes Cam Reddish, 26.4% usage, followed by Collins and Danilo. Gallinari at 24.9, Lou Will 24.3. So it's a big spread of guys into the 20s in that situation. Clicking over to the fantasy points per minute, if we go by DK points, we get Clint Capella up at 1.25 fantasy points per minute. But in terms of the direct beneficiaries of some of this situation, Cam Reddish at 0.98, Danilo jumps to 0.97, Lou Will 0.94 DraftKings points per minute, Delon Wright 0.84. So definitely going to be some opportunity here. We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, with the pricing on some of those guys, there are definitely some spots to look in this Atlanta rotation now.
All right, looking at some of our stuff here, going up against Minnesota, obviously you're going to have Cat out on the floor. So you got to be thinking you're going to have a big five come in there. They don't really have a big five to throw out there. Jalen McDaniels would be the closest thing alongside PJ Washington. PJ Washington only projected 16 minutes there. We've got Jalen McDaniels still for 12. So maybe that's going to kind of be the eject there. I'm going to have a tiny bit just because I have a weird feeling that that's somebody that could see some excess minutes. He's only 3,100. So the opportunity cost is relatively low. If I'm able to get some other studs in there, I'm not going to lose my mind over it. Not going to be any kind of an important piece. And somebody asked me, Jalen McDaniels or Alex Len. I definitely want Alex Len because I want as much swappability as possible on this slate here, especially, seeing Trae Young with a game time decision. Again, I don't know if you call that a downgrade. He was probable coming into today. And then whatever you want to classify it as, that's what it is. Jalen or Jaden, thank you. I said Jalen is who I'm talking about. I don't really know how else to enunciate that for you. Jalen was the guy for Charlotte that I liked. I don't really think Jaden McDaniels is somebody I want to go nuts with. 25 minutes we have him projected for. He's 5% owned, maybe even a little bit more, I would guess here. And we're only projecting him for around 19. So at 3,300, Jaden McDaniels starting for Minnesota, not nearly as interesting. Jalen McDaniels of Charlotte was a guy that I just kind of had a hunch for, but doesn't seem like the Awesemo tools are alongside that. So I'm going to probably be hitting eject on that take a little bit more than I was expecting. But let's go down to the rest of the position here. Everybody forward. We've got so many other plays. It's an 11 gamer, and what it looks like now is going to be different. Go ahead.
I was agreeing with you. Just so many different plays on the board and different from site to site too. It makes it interesting, but very difficult to talk about with all this breaking news.
Mm-hmm. And OG Anunoby, I'm still waiting for everything to update so I can give you guys a little bit clearer picture of what that's going to look like here in the Awesemo tools as well. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to be involved in the Awesemo tools as well, but let's talk Yahoo for a quick second here. Our sponsor here, as I'm waiting for that to upload, because it's such a big part about talking about forwards. I'm going to give it one more second, but Yahoo, we're going to be doing a 30-minute show for them here afterwards. They're just such a player-friendly site. I don't know if anybody played in that $1. You'd be an idiot not to. I hope you all got in that $1. It is the best tournament that I've ever seen in my DFS life in 7+ years of playing DFS. And right now, we also have another offer that's going that's just amazing as well. You get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum as a new user if you deposit $10 or more and you play in one paid contest. They have a Black Friday thing going right now. I'm playing 100 lineups over there today. I'm just excited that they have so many great contests going for the player. And if you enjoy having a great bankroll, if you enjoy sites that are trying to proactively help you, be able to build that bankroll, you're going to love playing at Yahoo. And now you'll get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you do. So stop guessing, start winning. But more importantly, jump into all these contests over at Yahoo. All right, let's take a look over here before, again, we're going to have 30 minutes to talk after that show. We're 45 minutes left in this entire show here, but I'm looking right now at the Toronto side, and looks like nobody's really getting a giant jump other than Precious Achiuwa, who was somebody that I already had my eye on at 4,100 at the center position. I think that he becomes even, there's more of a minute ceiling for that, more than the 24 perhaps there for him. But there's really no interest in going to Boucher, Mikhailuk. Is there anything that you're really seeing from Toronto?
No, like I was saying before, for me, it's just a situation where it kind of frees up a little bit for the guys that I already know are going to be getting minutes, going to be getting usage, and I trust and are good players. Guys like Freddie VanVleet, guys like Pascal Siakam. Looking at the Yahoo board, the guy who comes up significantly more in terms of the boom percentage is Freddie VanVleet for 31 on Yahoo. I think that's an interesting price point. It might be a little bit more than I would have thought I wanted to pay, but with a 21% boom score against that price, I'm not sure what his ownership. It's not populated in the update yet. Depending where his ownership would fall, that would become an interesting, potentially contrarian play over there, given the news that OG's out. So that's one to keep an eye on the Yahoo slate for ownership. Definitely a nice little boom score probability for VanVleet there for focusing on Toronto.
All right, Vanderbilt is my dog as well. I love Jared Vanderbilt so much as a Timberwolves fan. He's been going nuts here as well. Somebody that I like at the forward position, 9.2%. I have more. I really like him as a basketball player, fantasy point per minute player as well. If he's going to see floor time, and again, Okogie didn't end up seeing the floor at all, even though he was active last time out. I don't expect him to again here. I mean, the minutes are just so consolidated to some of those guys that I feel pretty confident about that. Jaden McDaniels, I don't see him playing anywhere like substantially. He played 30 and 24 the last two, and again, just not a piece that I'm as interested in getting to there. But Jared Vanderbilt, under 5K at the forward position, another guy I've got my eye on. We can go on and on and on at the forward position. Keldon Johnson, 5,500, somebody that I'm over the field on. Brandon Clark, 3,500. I think somebody that I want to be he's 21 and a half minutes. I think that people are trying to make him a thing today, and he might be more popular coming off of 26 minutes the last two games. But I don't really necessarily think I need to get to him or Jaren Jackson nearly as much. They're not projecting out well in our tools. Those are kind of my quick hitting analysis pieces. Is there anything that you really want to touch at the forward position? Because we're going to get flying to center and finish this thing out.
Love it. Yeah, between those two, I think I prefer just the general upside of Jaren Jackson, despite the fact that he's coming in at obviously much, much higher pricing. You're talking about on the DK slate, 6,300 versus 3,500. I just think he's the better player. He's been the better per minute player over the course of his career, 1.26 per minute last season versus 1.02 from Clark. This season, a little bit closer, 1.13 versus 1.09. Jaren Jackson could also go out there and get 4 fouls in the first 30 seconds of the game. So there's always that. But I think between those guys, I would prefer him. Definitely glad you called out the Vanderbilt play, because he was a guy I was sleeping on a little bit in terms of the DK slate, because he cost 6,000 on FanDuel. He's been priced up a little bit to match his production on FanDuel. Not so much on DK. 4,700 power forward and center eligible. Like that a lot. 1.03 fantasy point per minute guy. Love the rebounding. 16.1% rebounding percentage on the season. Only 11.4% usage to deliver the 1.03 too. It's doing a lot with rebounding, and we've got him with, he's at 20.8 minute average for the season, 26.1 minute projection for him tonight. So definitely with the aggressive minutes, I like that call quite a bit on the DK slate.
All right. We have those 3 games in the early window, and there's going to be a lot of rostership going to Minnesota, Charlotte, a lot of rostership going to Chicago, Orlando, specifically the Orlando side. No way around it. So make sure you get at least a dummy cut of your lineups in here. We'll be waiting on that Atlanta news. We'll be here half an hour after the show. We're going to keep going, talking some Yahoo, but specifically talking about the slate as it starts, react to some ownership, react to some of the other news that comes in. So you're going to want to stick around for that here. But yeah, rounding out the forward position, I think that we've done a pretty equitable job of breaking down as much as we possibly could there. Again, 11 gamer. I don't know what my lineups are going to look like. It's going to be very different if you get no Bogdanovich and no Trae Young. I can tell you that right now, no doubt about it. Maybe that's a reason to like Brandon Clark, is that you have a roster spot to use at Brandon Clark. So, and Jaren Jackson Jr. always carries upside. I don't completely hate that, but a double-digit ownership probably going to be going elsewhere. Pelicans, I like Brandon Ingram, not so much there. Josh Hart, Josh Giddey, 6,500, too expensive for me now with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in there. That's
I would knock
pretty
him
much
off the board completely.
all we got here at the forward position. Cam Reddish, man, I will fire up all the Cam Reddish and all the land in the event that you get both of those cats out. But let's jump over to center here, and then we'll talk about our favorite plays here as we look at some of our ownership ourselves here that we have. But Wendell Carter, he's at the top over on DK, still nearly 30% rostership, somebody that is just always breaking down the boom bust tool, somebody that is always jumping to the top of the optimal percentages. It seems like every single slate because he's just too cheap. I mean, there's negative leverage that exists on him now, no doubt about it, -12. But Adam Scher talks all the time about how you can still play some of those guys and figure out other pieces around them, whether that's Buddy Hield, who's also negatively leveraged, whether that's Davion Mitchell, who's negatively leveraged, but is a good source of value. I mean, you can find other ways to get there, but what are you doing specifically with Wendell Carter on this slate?
Yeah, I think he's a foundational piece, right? That's how I tend to refer to it. I write a daily column about these kinds of guys that judges plays by their optimal rate, their leverage, and their boom score on our boom bust tool. And there are guys who come in, like you just said, that he's got a -20 leverage score on the FanDuel slate, a -12 on the DK slate, but he's got so much upside in terms of his optimal lineup rate, in terms of just what we expect points per dollar, that it just makes sense to build him in as just a strong part of your foundation. And then you cast about for other plays from the upside spots. He's a guy who helps you buy two plays like Giannis, plays like Steph, if you can get up to that level. Certainly plays like DeJounte Murray, who we've talked about a few times, or let's say Karl Anthony Towns, who I think is too cheap at the center spot that we're about to roll into on the FanDuel slate. So he's just a foundational guy who gets you to those other plays, and you don't sweat the negative leverage. Where I'm looking at the leverage column and saying, all right, I want to make a decision to get away from this, would be on those pay up options, right? I don't want to book some negative leverage with my value plays or go to guys who aren't as good of a value play and just say, all right, that's the same price, but I'm sacrificing 20% in the optimal lineup appearance rate, but I'm putting in the same price. So now I can pay for John Morant, let's say, who's also negatively leveraged. So you want to consider the plays, how they relate to one another. What is booking this guy buy me? What does it cost me? And for me, Wendell Carter is just a guy that makes a ton of sense at price. 1.06, we talked about him before, but 1.06 fantasy points per minute. He's mispriced for that. You can buy two Wendell Carters on the DK slate and have 300 left over before you get to a Nikola Jokic share. That's aggressive. I know Jokic is a dominant performer, 1.71 fantasy points per minute. He deserves every penny of his salary. But when you can get a guy less than half the price who's coming up almost as frequently optimal, you're talking about a 16.6% optimal for Jokic and a 16.2 for Wendell Carter. This might be clear that you want to get him.
Yeah, this might be the only part that we disagree on. For me, like I'm obsessed with getting to as much Nikola Jokic as I possibly can in the event that he gets ruled in, because people hate playing guys with Q tags next to him. It's just a proven fact. We live in a little bubble. You know, we've got 2.5K people watching. Also, please hit that like button again. I'm going to keep pandering for it because I don't care. I'm newly married. Look at me. Married. I need the money. I need the clout. Let's go. Hit that like button. Raise it. Yes, I do, Tyler Zander, producer behind the scenes. Thank you so much to Tyler there.
Did the new wife give like a threshold? Like if we don't have a X amount of thumbs before this is just over, before
there's a joke there about, we're not even going to go there. We're not going to do it. Marriage has been good so far, but all honeymoon.
Thumb, is that what we're saying?
Oh my dear sweet God! Oh my dear sweet God! Terry,
I sell you?
Terry.
You said it.
Terry.
You said it.
Terry.
We're talking about you and your married life and what goes on. That's
Terry.
Let's spend the rest of the show. 7 minutes left. Let's spend the rest, or 37 minutes. We can get deep on this.
There's a joke there too, but we're going to move on. I love getting to Nikola Jokic here. I think you guys absolutely need to be playing some Nikola Jokic. I'm going to be over the field drastically on that number because, again, people won't be able to have the roster ability. And on FanDuel, if you lose 11-3 Nikola Jokic, play Anthony Davis. I don't really think that that's a crazy thing, $300 leaving him there. I don't want to be leaving $700 over on DK as much, but specifically on FanDuel, I think that does make some sense. Pretty easy to kind of drop down from that number. So keep that in mind. I just think he carries the most upside of probably any play on the slate outside of Giannis. So I'm going to be firing him up in bulk. Just simply because I think it's going to be easier for me having some exposure to the later stuff. That's kind of always my approach, that I want to get to some Jokic. And if we get any kind of Hawks news to really open it up, you want to be jamming in the top projected players and the guys who are projecting for the most fantasy points. So I'm totally on board with you. If the slate started right now, I don't know how in love with Nikola Jokic I would be, but the best part about this is there is late swap, and I'll be able to kind of react to how everything's going throughout the night. And 34.5% boom percentage, 11.3% total leverage right now on him. I got to be thinking that that's pretty good. But the rest of the center position, Mo Bamba, another guy that is just a fantastic spot, 6,400 for him on DK up against the Chicago front court of Vooch, who can't guard me, so that's tough. Precious Achiuwa, really like him as well. Who else is standing out to you?
Yeah, so just real quick on just to round off that Carter and Jokic thing. The beauty part is multi-position on both sides for Carter. You can play them together. So you don't actually have to make the decision between those two guys. Carter's a guy who can buy you those Jokic shares. So just to throw that into the mix. And I totally agree with everything you said on Jokic. I love getting to these guys, these superstars, when they've got those Q tags, especially when I kind of think he's going to play tonight. It was a wrist thing. They were talking about it on the previous show. He was out there for a lot of warm up and ended up not playing despite telling the coach, like, I want to be out there. I want to play. And that was all the reporting. And it's not like it's a situation where it was a leg thing. So he should still be in perfect game shape. We don't have to worry about limited minutes or anything. So I really like the idea of getting to that. I mentioned Karl Anthony Towns earlier, 11% optimal, negative 12 on the leverage at 8,800. That's one where that's a discount for Karl Anthony Towns, right? 1.24 fantasy points per minute on the FanDuel site, 16.2% assist share, 12.2% rebounding rate, 62.7% true shooting percentage. The guy's a superstar. We've got him projected for a 44.5 median projection, one of the higher numbers on the slate, 29.9% boom score probability on FanDuel. I think he's dramatically underpriced over there. So that's one, even with some negative leverage, even at that pay up level, I'm willing to go to that. Where I'm not getting the Jokic, I would probably start booking some Karl Anthony Towns shares in the center spot. Because if you're looking in terms of the optimal rate, jump back to the FanDuel slate here. If we sort by optimal rate, I mentioned Bobby Portis earlier. We've talked about Wendell Carter ad nauseum. Both of those guys also have power forward eligibility, as does Al Horford. Those are the three top center options as well. And then you get down into a mixed bag of guys with center-only eligibility like Jonas Valanciunas, Nikola Vucevic, Karl Anthony Towns. A lot of these guys are coming out pretty similarly in the wash. I'll even throw Julius Randle into that mix, power forward center eligible. A lot of these guys are coming out very similarly between 12 and 10% optimal. So I just want to start mixing and matching some of those shares, and I'll get aggressive and I'll try and get ahead of the field maybe on a guy like Towns. I don't know if I can do it at 23% ownership. Maybe that's better spent on a Randle play at only 9.3% ownership. Maybe you get more aggressive there, but that's where I can start making some decisions about how my ownership shares fall. So I think that's just a really interesting tier.
Somebody just asked, is there a minutes limit on PJ Washington? I think it's kind of an assumed one. We have him for 22 and a half minutes, so that's gone up a little bit here for him. He played 6 minutes last game. Even before he got hurt, he was capping out around 17 minutes were the last 2 games that he had played there. Both of those were losses. I guess one was a blowout, Golden State, the other one less so there. It says Trae Young will play. So take all of that Trae Young stuff off the board here. 2 minutes left to go. Bogdanovic will play. Take that off the board as well. Man, I'm glad that I had that pulled up. I had the B writers just kind of ready to rock here. We've got no news guy. Keeps you updated there in the premium Discord. So, I mean, he's normally here in the YouTube chat. I don't see him today, which is sad, but I was just doing my due diligence there. So wanted to make sure we got them both in here. But again, I will have plenty of time to be able to move stuff around here. I was already getting to Malik Beasley. I think that he becomes even more important for me here on the front end because he's a great source of value there. I was already getting to some late pieces. You'll have plenty of time to be able to get off of it, but make sure you get that early run of lineups in here. For me, Jerry Vanderbilt, another piece. I was just making sure I got 2 on the early piece or on the early part of the slate. Cat, I do have 22%, so I love that call by you as well. Somebody said that it's Anthony Edwards' team now. No, it is not. It is not Anthony Edwards' team. It is Karl Anthony Towns' team because he projects better than Anthony Edwards every single game. What do you think, Terry?
Whoever you are, please tweet that at Karl Anthony Towns every single day until he gets himself traded to the New York Knicks, because I would love that. I want him pissed off in Minnesota as much as possible.
There he is. Loco, my dude. There he is. Just lots of news. He's keeping it updated too. Again, I knew he was here. He's always watching. He's the watchful protector. You know, the absolute every Christian Bale Dark Knight trilogy analogy you want to go for it. Somebody said Desmond Bain earlier, and I always have to say his name like that as well. It's a creature of habit. 1 minute, get your lineups in. We're not going anywhere though. We're not going nowhere. We can't be stopped now because it's Bad Boys for Life on the Yahoo show. 30 minutes after the slate here. I'm excited to be talking about it, but I want to make sure Terry gets all of his stuff in. Tyler Xander cannot believe me today. He's like, how did I get on this? We did an hour NFL show for Yahoo earlier in the day. Now we're doing an hour and a half here. He cannot wait. Stop singing Diddy. I'm going to sing Diddy whenever I want to sing Diddy. Okay. That's something that I'm the artist here. Okay. You are simply the technician. Be the technician. Okay. How about that? I'm kidding, Tyler. I love you. Even if you think that mate is something that British people say, which they don't.
Stay behind the glass where you belong. That's all.
I'm just saying, he can't say anything about it. That's why I just meant to tilt him. All right, everybody, we're at lock. Boom. Did it. We covered everything. We covered guard, forward, center. We covered breaking news. It's an 11 gamer. There's a lot to get to here. I'm going to play a little game I like to call Guess the Ownership, because I think that that's a very fun game to play here. I'm going to jump over to DraftKings here to start off. I'm going to pull up that lovely $15. Here we go. Go into that. I want you to guess, what is Malik Beasley, who, was a guy that we had projected as one of the highest owned pieces of the entire day over here. What do you think his rostership came in at?
Let's see. We had him projected in the 20s. I'm going to say we were probably a little bit low at that price. I'm going to put him over 31%.
32.6%. Terry, God, I love you. You are just too good at this game. Karl Anthony Towns, 20.9%. I think that's just fine. I mean, I ended up being 1% over the field. I'll live with that. I think that I'm fine with that here. I'm trying to see some of the other very, very popular pieces. Jalen Suggs, 11.8%. I think that ended up being a little low. Jared Vanderbilt got up to 16.3%. That's kind of fascinating. Again, these are just some guys that I have the most of here. Franz Wagner, he has 4,300, 20.6%. All the Orlando guys were projecting out there. Terry Rozier, everybody's out chasing that game that I was able to utilize there. 28.8% on him. That's a big number to be looking at as well. I think this slate is just going to be glorious. It's going to be really, really fun here. Wendell Carter, the other big piece. What do you think his rostership came in at?
Man, we had him 28 and change. I'm going to go over on that one too. I'm going to put him in. I'm going to go 10% on top, 38.
34.4%. Terry, you are way too sharp for all of us. Why don't you just,
you're the guy who just sold a bunch of Jared Vanderbilt shares. Don't sell yourself short. That's impressive too. We had him projected for 9% ownership, and he got well above that in this last hour here. So I think that had a lot to do with your love for Jared Vanderbilt.
Because I love Jared Vanderbilt. I'm a mark for him. How about 30 plus fantasy points, sub 5K? Are you interested in such things? Because he's done it 3 games in a row, 28 there the game before that. He was 3,500 for that game. That would be much more appealing for me here. Walker, Fournier, Barrett, Randall, Robinson. That was the starting lineup we had projected for your Knicks, your New York Knickerbockers. How about that? That's just kind of a moot point. Nothing really to talk about there. But let's see. I just find this ownership to just be fascinating because it seems like we were kind of on the right guys here. I feel pretty confident about some of the assessments that we had here going around. Anthony Edwards. Oh my God. What is Anthony Edwards ownership in the $15 on DK? Just guess.
That sounded like an aggressively high. I'm going to say he's over 40.
44.2%.
Yowza.
Oh, I am uncomfortably under the field, and I didn't know that. So
that is bonkers. We had him projected as the second most highly owned player on the slate, and sometimes the numbers don't exactly drill exactly where the public comes down. But that's obviously we had him pegged right, as everybody wants to be on him. We were just underestimating the enthusiasm that everybody has for that play. That's fascinating. That's going to be a major inflection point for this slate now.
Oh my God.
And in the first game of the night too.
Yeah. I mean, there's one other value piece. I had a tiny bit of Cameron Payne. If everybody remembers back to the playoffs, Cameron Payne was my one big shout out call that I had. Cameron Payne, when Chris Paul got hurt, I was like, I bet Chris Paul could be limited, even though he was in the starting lineup, and Cameron Payne was like 3% or something. And I had like 60%. That was an enjoyable day for everybody involved. So I have my mandatory 5% of Cameron Payne. He's 4.4%. So that's not really a talking point for anybody there. Yeah, just kind of is what it is. That's going to kind of cover most of the stuff there. Man, Harkless will break the slate tonight. I don't completely hate how could you be Mo Harkless? I literally did that like a year and a half ago, and now Wobb's doing it, which is really sad. But I want some copyright infringement. I won't do that. He's a lovely NBA personality.
That was the team name for years in my old season-long fantasy basketball league was how could you be any Mo Harkless?
You don't even need the mo on the front end. It's about alliteration and matching the lyrics perfectly, Terry.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
No, it's just not what we're doing at all. We're talking Yahoo Fantasy, baby. That's what we're here to talk. And I'm very excited to be talking about Yahoo because it is the best site that you can possibly be playing on for DFS right now. 1.6K people. If you are not on Yahoo and you're one of those 1.6K people that are still here hanging with us for this half hour, do yourself a favor, go over to Yahoo, use promo code Awesemo when you sign up and get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. But more importantly, enter some of these freaking contests because they are the best, most player friendly in the entire industry. And if you're an MME player like me, like Terry, like all of us here, a lot of us here at Awesemo, they have made it so much easier to CSV your lineups, to be able to do the CSV upload. You can do multiple contests at once. It's just like using the other sites now. It's so simple, easy, and efficient that even a caveman can do it. So I would take advantage of those kind of offerings over at Yahoo right now. They had the Black Friday sale that they had going. It was as good as it gets. And being able to jump into that, it's got 33.3% of the field being paid out in all of these contests, all management fees or rake, whatever you want to call it, around 11%, 12%. That's the best in the industry. So if you want to start building a bankroll, sustaining a bankroll, and win some really good money, go and play at Yahoo. And now, of course, use promo code Awesemo, deposit $10 or more, get that free month. There's no better deal that we will ever run in the history of our company here. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the plays that I'm looking at over at the Yahoo slate. We always go position by position, so we might as well talk about some of the guard plays there. You know, everybody kind of landed in that mid tier. Of course, once again, Terry Rozier was projecting out phenomenally well over there. D'Angelo Russell as well, John Morant. I mean, those are all guys that I was going to get to quite a bit there. Playing another site allows you to get to some other plays that you might not have got on DK or FanDuel as well. So is there anything over on Yahoo that really stuck out to you at the guard position at first look, Terry?
Let me grab the guards here and sort for that. I was in the middle of reading the cease and desist letter we just got from the Geico lawyers. So
good.
I'm not
glad
sure what
to be
you
here.
Said, but yeah,
glad to be here.
They're angry.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Tyler, it's gonna be okay.
So, could I sell you on any shares of Evan Fournier for $12? He's a guy who wasn't really interesting to me at all on the other sites, but you get the right night for Fournier. He's, might tick up. It's kind of like what we said about Kemba. He's playing well. I didn't realize we were only talking about unlocked plays. So excuse me.
No. I was just talking. I was talking about in bulk, but all
right. So
to give
people
a guy that
some
we
did talk about, Davion Mitchell in that Sacramento game for only $10 is kind of a dynamite lock and load value play over there. How about that one?
Love it. Davion Mitchell, fire him up. $10. Yeah. That's so simple. Even I won't say it. I won't go for $2. That'd be bad. Going for $2, something not enough NFL teams do. I digress. Here we go.
Agreed.
Rest of the position. Terry, I knew I liked you. I knew we were best friends. I don't understand why you don't take the ball and just try to go for $2 almost every time. But that's a different discussion for a different day. Malik Beasley here.
Stop punting so much.
Yeah, that's another fun thing that you should be doing in the NFL is, just going for it. Anytime you're beyond like your own 30, 35 yard line, just go for it. I'm so sick of it.
Why cut yourself to only 3 opportunities? Take the 4th opportunity.
Go out and win the football game. Don't go out to try to not lose the football game. Yes, Mike Zimmer, I'm talking to you in 99% of the games that you coach, even though we beat Green Bay on Sunday. So I'm at least happy now. Looking at the rest of the guard position, though, here, Jalen Suggs also locked. A number of these guys already locked that were really projecting out well, but, that's going to be something that really sticks out here. DeJounte Murray, our boy, 15.6% there. 1.32 DraftKings points per minute over the last calendar year. Now facing Boston here. He's $40. It looks weird. I don't care. I want to play him over there as well. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been enthused about playing him all season long, and he's just been delivering nonstop. And I honestly think there is still a little bit more upside to be squeezed out of him because of his true shooting percentage, which I have to jump back to the other board here. Still under 50%, 49.4% true shooting for him on the season, delivering 1.32 FanDuel points per minute. That's dynamite. If he just ticks that up by a few more percentage points, you're getting a little bit more production from him. I love the player. It's funny. Greg and I did a show 3-4 weeks ago, I guess, at this point, and he was in the low 8s. And I said off the cuff, I was just saying, I think he's going to be a $9,000 player. And Greg said, no, I think he's going back the other way. And it wasn't like a heated point of contention, but he's living in the 9,000 range. I think we're going to see him over 10,000 before it's too long at this rate, which blows my mind. But I think it makes a ton of sense. I think he's going to creep up in value on the in price on the Yahoo slate as well. So take advantage of the $40 price while you can. I think he's going up from here still.
Oh, somebody said that I did that with Marvin Bagley last year and won him $28K as well. Man, I must be a great person. Also, somebody said that I'm on drugs. Is this your first time here? I'm just a happy person who loves talking sports and being goofy. I don't really know what else to tell you. I'm literally like this on every stream since, I don't know, forever. Is that about right, Terry?
That's about right. Everyone I've ever done with you, if you ever came on here and you were just kind of like downbeat and slow, I wouldn't know what to do. It would be really weird. It's fun doing shows with you. It gets me like a little up. My family's going to be annoyed at me. I'm going to walk out all talkative and like, enthused about doing something.
It'd be like this. It'd be all right. So Fred VanVleet is somebody you could roster if you wanted to. Tyrese Halliburton, if you wanted to.
He's good too.
On the table, you want her to. Oh man, was that seriously a System of a Down reference? I think that's what I just did there. That's another platform that will get there. Toxicity of our city. You don't know what I'm talking about, Terry. I can tell. So we're going to move on. Rest of the guard position here. I like Tyrese Halliburton. Let's just get all these Sacramento pieces here. I already like them. I think De'Aaron Fox, a big talking point over on FanDuel. Is he in your FanDuel lineup over there, Terry?
Well, like I told you before the show, I only ended up building one just because it's been a little bit of a hectic day, and I don't think that he was in it. I think I went like LaMelo, DeJounte Murray. Let me see. I'll tell you exactly what's in it. I went with LaMelo, DeJounte Murray. I got Buddy in there. I got to get Josh Giddey out of there. I had him in there expecting SGA to be out. So I got to make some changes like we've talked about. That's perfectly fine. Always happy to make some late swaps. I've got some Wendell Carter in there. I've got some, some Bobby Portis in there, some Keldon, who we touched on briefly. So it's a weird, like mid-rangey kind of a lineup, but I'm going to work on it a little bit. It was something I kind of slapped together just so I had something in play. I never like doing a show and having nothing in play. So I threw one cheapo lineup into the big FanDuel one.
Low beat Eric is better than coked up Eric. I'm neither. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Also, yeah, Terry's like, disagree. Inject him straight into my veins here. All right, we got some basketball underway. I'm excited to give you guys the live Eric Tilt Fest. I think that's probably what I'm known for the most. If there's one thing that I can do here at Awesemo better than just about anybody else, it's tilt. And I can tilt some basketball. I will tell you, D'Angelo Russell, bucket, rebound, let's go. D'Angelo Russell, another bucket, rebound. Karl Anthony Towns assist. D'Angelo Russell turnover. See, these are the things that you're all here for. I'm excited to give you the live reaction. Ooh, I'm doing well on Yahoo. That's enjoyable. All right, rest of the guard position over there. I think looking at some of these later games, I'm taking the rest of Minnesota, Charlotte. There we go. I've got all these pieces out on Fantasy Cruncher. We're going to talk about everybody left. Will Barton, a guy we haven't talked about at all. Will Barton is like the piece that I want to get to the absolute most in late swap. If we're going to talk late swap pieces, if Nikola Jokic is out, fire up as much Will Barton as you possibly can, especially at $23 on Yahoo. How do you feel about him and the rest of this Denver situation if you get Jokic ruled out?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a 0.95 fantasy point per minute player in Will Barton. Definitely going to be a significant amount more for him to do on the court. He's a 21% usage guy. You'd be taking in that situation. Where the hell did Jokic go? He's on here. So you're taking a massive usage number from Jokic. I don't need to tell you that Nikola Jokic gets a gigantic amount of usage. So there's just more to do for everybody there. A guy I've had a little bit of success pivoting to in the situations where Jokic has been out, and I've mentioned it a few times, is Aaron Gordon. We've got him at a reasonable price. I liked it a lot better when he was cheaper than this. 6,600. I'm not sure how much I'd be there on the DK slate. 58, probably not as much on FanDuel as when he was a little bit cheaper. I still think he's got a little bit of relevance on the FanDuel slate. Jeff Green, similar story, 5,300 on FanDuel, still 45 on DK. Would be a little bit of interest to me over there on the DK slate. So I would be looking at some of those pieces, but Barton is definitely the guy who is most interesting. He was projecting out pretty well in our numbers on the blue side because he's only 6,000 over there. So I was getting to a boatload of them without taking Jokic out. I can only imagine what would happen to that number if Jokic does come out. So definitely an interesting piece tonight.
Very interesting. Yeah. Aaron Gordon, Jeff Green, J. Michael Green, everybody. That might be the spot to be getting to, period, in the late swap department here. Also, for everybody just banging the door, let's start tilting that Anthony Edwards 0 fantasy points here in the first 2.5 minutes of the game. Start freaking out. PJ Washington for 3 though. Hey, good to see a pulse on that guy. So he at least has fantasy points up on the board. So that's enjoyable to see. I don't have that much, so I'm hoping that doesn't end up burning me. But I digress. I'm right there with you here with the Denver team. But Will Barton specifically over there on Yahoo, I think he just really sticks out as somebody at that number that you want to get to. Aaron Gordon as well. And again, late swap is available on every site, DraftKings, FanDuel, including Yahoo here. And now with their CSV being so easy to edit, I've just really, really enjoyed it. So if you haven't had a chance to play some MME over there, jump in that quarter, play 30, or I think it was like 34 lineups you could get in for that today. Play in that dollar, put 150 lineups in that, get some MME going there, and you'll see how simple it is to be using that interface now. It is just so much improved. So well done to everybody over at Yahoo on that team. And for NFL, it's going to really come in handy, especially come Sunday. 200K overlay, like they have been running every single Sunday. Best contest in DFS, no question about it, for NFL Sundays. So check out that $20 that they're always running there with 100K up top and $1 million total prize pool, 200K overlay. It's just a joke how good this site is for everybody here. Anything else at guard here on Yahoo for you that's really sticking out?
I was looking at the Portland guards. Would you rather pay 38 for Dame or 31 for CJ in that spot?
It's a good question. I'm a mark for Dame, and I'm going to be Nikola Jokic ruled out. All right. Hopefully you guys all stuck around because baby.
I'm glad that I just made that pivot that we were just talking about. When you brought up Will Barton, that's who I stuck into that FanDuel lineup, taking the Suggs play out. And he was $200 less than Suggs on that slate. That's bananas. Well, I think he's got massive, massive appeal at 23 on the Yahoo slate now.
God, I love this. So if you guys all stuck around, we've got over 1K people here talking. We're going to talk a lot of Yahoo, and I'm going to be swapping, made 100 lineups over there. And, I talked about getting to more Jokic, getting to more Giannis, more of those guys. I pretty much want to get to everything Denver on planet Earth here now. If I'm going to play Giannis, I'm going to pretty much have it'll be pretty natural that they're going to have Denver players in those kind of spots. I mean, this is just going to be a team that, some of the prices have started to come up here. Will Barton over on DK, 7,200, less appealing, but still I'm going to get there. Aaron Gordon, less appealing at 6,600, but still going to get a little bit. Monty Morris, Jeff Green, 4,700 and 4,500. I'm absolutely obsessed with over on DK now. Those kind of become guys that you need to be getting to. And even somebody like, I don't want to say it out loud because I think I'm going to just get completely bashed here on live stream, but Facundo Campazzo is sitting there. He's played 27, and 29 minutes now, the last 3 outings. There's going to be shots. There's going to be minutes involved. He's 3,500. I think you could do worse than that, Kat. What are your initial reactions to Nikola Jokic being ruled out?
Yeah, fire up all the Barton shares on FanDuel for the 6,000, and I definitely think he's still there for 7,200 on the DK slate. We talked about Gordon, we talked about Green, both of those guys super interesting to me. Monte Morris definitely has some appeal at that $4,700 price tag, both sites. I like him a little better where you get the positional flex on the DK slate, despite it being the same price against a lower cap. I just think he's a little bit more got a little bit more utility when you can flex him between the 2 different guard spots. And when you say I wasn't going to say his name, I thought you were going to say I wasn't going to say his name because you were going to sing his name with your Facundo Campazzo bit. To
Facundo Campazzo.
There it is.
Wonderful phrase. Also, Evan Fournier going completely nuts. Facundo Campazzo.
Love it. See, we threw that one out there. Unfortunately, it was after lock, but hey, what are you going to do?
What am I supposed to do here? Thank you so much to Yahoo for their sponsorship, and I will get back on track eventually here. Talk to me a little bit more about this sub. I mean, just were there advantageously priced, play as many Denver players as you possibly can. I don't know what else you want me to say.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Campazzo, 0.74 fantasy points per minute, not the most inspiring number on the board. But like you said, seeing a little bit more action. And again, just another guy who's going to benefit from there being a massive amount more to do. Nikola Jokic, I've now got it in front of me, has a 30.5% usage rate for the season. That needs to get distributed around. Somebody's got to take some shots here. So there's just going to be more to do for everybody. I think that leads to, potentially the assists go up a little bit. Campazzo, 19% assist share. Maybe we see him just distributing the ball a little bit more. I just think there's more to do for everybody. So like you just said, where they make sense price-wise, and he certainly does fit into that mold, I think he makes a ton of sense to go to. On the, on the Yahoo slate, $10. So there's your discount. That is a very nice little price there. So he'd be in play. He'd be right in line with would you rather play Campazzo or Davion Mitchell at $10?
Well, I think you're going to get a major ownership discount. The answer might be both. Just play a lot of both. But if you're making me pick one, I still think Davion Mitchell is the guy that, I can't see a way as a rookie here. Obviously they just got rid of Luke Walton. They're bringing in Alvin Gentry. He's been promoted to the interim head coach, somebody that we've seen be fantasy friendly for guys in the past. In his time in New Orleans, other places where he's bounced around to, definitely been somebody to fire up a lot of these players because they just get crazy minutes. By the way, Wendell Carter just smashing as chalk. 8 points, 3 rebounds, assist, and a block right off the bat. Thanks for coming. Have a nice day. Now. Drive home safely. 2 blocks now.
Second shot.
Holy mother of God. It's glorious.
Love that.
God. What an absolute
now
monster.
I'm starting to regret only playing the one lineup and throwing it just for fun. I should have 150 shares of that guy.
Yeah, I mean, that was on FanDuel. I have 100%, but I didn't play as much on FanDuel. So there's that. On Yahoo, I have a ton. DraftKings, I have a ton. There was no way around it. I thought he was the best play of the slate, not talking about ownership, just point per dollar. I thought he was just a phenomenal play in that mid-range. And that's coming to fruition. We talked about that
when we talked about him, just in terms of being able to not worry about it because he was such a great point per dollar play. He was such a foundational piece. I wouldn't have had 150 out of 150. I would have almost definitely had 135 out of 150 lineups with Wendell Carter Jr. in it on that.
Did you just say I talked about him when we talked about him?
I always talk about everybody when I talk about him, and I'm going to talk about that. And we're talking about that right now. So let's talk.
Wow. I love this show so much. There's nothing better. I'm going to definitely, sometimes you just mark those good ones. This is definitely a good one. Well done, Terry McBride. D'Angelo Russell also going nuts, 9 points, 2 assists, 1 rebound. There's no doubt about it. He was a good play as well. Everybody, it seems like good plays are going crazy right now and bad plays are not. Terry Rozier also off to a good start, 7 points, 1 rebound, 1 steal. Much more popular over on DK than what I anticipated, but such is life. I think back to your question, Campazzo or Davion Mitchell. I mean, Davion Mitchell is sitting there on Yahoo at the flat $10 here. Facundo Campazzo, same exact number here for him. I like Campazzo here, especially seeing there was a little blurb that threw out that Bones Highland was still doubtful. I never expected him to play. So that doesn't really change anything for me whatsoever. I still think just Campazzo, J. Michael Green, Monty Morris. There's just so many shots in production. I mean, Jokic does everything. He's a fantasy monster. And now the most expensive player you have on Yahoo is a $23 Will Barton. My Yahoo lineups are going to look just completely Denver Nuggets related. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm going to have a piece of everybody there. There's not a single player there that I'm like, oh, I don't want to get to them. Even Austin Rivers, who's sub 0.5 fantasy points per minute, he's $10, the flat $10, and he's going to have to play a ton of minutes for this basketball team going forward. The usage hasn't been completely off, 13.7% usage the last 2 games here, sans Nikola Jokic. So I think getting to even him isn't the worst thing ever. I'd probably draw the line at Zeke Naji. I think he's probably the one guy that I won't touch whatsoever. But Campazzo, Rivers, Green, both Greens, should I say, Monty Morris. I mean, this is just going to be a phenomenal day.
So you're saying play the hell out of Bol?
No, I didn't say Bol. I mean, that Bol, though, randomly starts in some of these spots. Like, would it be the weirdest? Yeah, it would be the weirdest thing ever. That would really break my brain.
That would be mind melting. And look, Austin Rivers, a guy we've seen bend slates in the past in odd spots. Could he do that in a situation where we had him projected at 26.1 minutes? Does he see a few additional minutes? Certainly a lot more to do on the court like we've talked about, and maybe contributes more than a half a fantasy point per minute. It's absolutely on the table. So it wouldn't totally knock me out of my seat. It's not something I expected to say coming into tonight, but yeah, I'm with you on that. That makes some sense. And then just going back to the Campazzo versus Mitchell thing on the Yahoo slate, if we're talking about cash games, you're just locking Mitchell, I think. But I think to your first point that you made about it, you're getting a major ownership discount because people aren't going to be thinking about Campazzo, where for all the other sites, every other site in the industry and us, we've been mentioning Davion Mitchell throughout the day because everybody was expecting Harrison Barnes to scratch. He scratched early enough scratched 2 hours ago. So there's been plenty of time for him to get talked up a little bit. I think he'd be the clear cash play, but for tournaments, I love the idea of at the same price, at that same dead minimum price, just taking the Campazzo pivot for ownership.
And then you get to have me sing when I win a GPP tonight. So that'll be That's a twofer. That's the way I look at that is a twofer. People saying they like me off the rails. Thank you. I enjoy being off the rails. I'm just who I am. Be what I want to be. How about that? Can I sing that one or no?
Sure.
Would you?
Yeah.
Tyler Zander. Yeah, thank you. If I work hard at it.
Let's do. I mean, we can take requests for the next 6.5 minutes if you want to do it that way.
Everybody does know Matt Savoca went to NYU to sing, right? Like everybody's aware that Matt Savoca here at Awesemo.com had a scholarship at NYU for singing. And I'm assuming has just some absolute pipes. And we need to get those likes up so that Matt Savoca has to sing next time that I'm on stream with him, which I believe is on Sunday. So that's not too far away. We've got week 12 coming up here as well. And if you sign up with Yahoo right now, use that promo code Awesemo, $10, deposit $10. You'll get the support at Awesemo.com. That goes to our friend over there, Terry McBride, who I can't tell you. I was having this conversation with Ryan the other day. You're the hardest working man here at Awesemo.com. There's no way around it. You are absolutely the guy. You're the glue of this entire company. There's no doubt about it. And you're just like an silent assassin when it comes to the DFS space as well. Had some big MLB wins and just never talks about it. Doesn't do the screenshot life. Just an absolute stud. So shout out to Terry. But get that support at Awesemo.com. Email to him. Get that free month of Awesemo Plus so that you can jump in and try out all of the premium offerings we have for NFL as well as NBA. I promise you won't be disappointed. You'll like the way you play DFS. I guarantee it. How about that one? Yes. Tyler has lost it. Tyler doesn't know what to do with his life. He's so over this. All right, back to Yahoo. Let's talk some forward. Obviously, that was gigantic news that we had to talk about. Oh, Edwards will sit until halftime. That was an easy fade. Oh, I'm so underneath on Anthony Edwards compared to the field. I mean, I didn't know he was going to be 40+%. But yeah, it is still Cat's team, and now Anthony Edwards 2 fouls. So oopsie.
That is gonna hurt a major chunk of that DraftKings slate. I like that a lot.
Boom goes the dynamite. How about that? All right. Rest of forward here on Yahoo, or I guess just kind of even beginning forward. We've got 4 minutes here. I got a couple plays that I've got my eye on. Obviously, a lot of Denver. Giannis, now you can play some Denver alongside Giannis. You kind of need him to be in there. And if Giannis is going to go completely nuts, that game, if Denver can somehow keep it close, which is just a big if here in this spot. But I got to be liking to get to a little bit of Giannis, not as much Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. $31 and $29 over on Yahoo. Not my favorite place to be getting to, but alongside some of those Denver pieces, that just makes sense. But until we got all of that news, somebody that I had my eye on from Sacramento as well, with Harrison Barnes out, we had what? Buddy Hield, small forward, $21. My favorite play over there, but he's 32%. Would you want to be over or under? I have my 100 lineups on Yahoo. Would you think over or under on Buddy Hield for me today?
Whether you are,
or whether I should be, what would you do if you were me?
I think we should be over based on what the numbers tell us. I think the gut doesn't like that. I think the bias part of it doesn't like that, but those are the things we've got to ignore for DFS, right? So the price is right. The production's going to be there, knock on wood. Certainly the opportunity is there for the production. It makes sense to book additional shares.
Ryan Nelson, I love you too. I'm just going to throw that out there. All right, 3 minutes to go here. A lot of great plays on Denver. There's not really anybody that you're going to be playing at center from that team. So at least that makes it a better talking point here. But looking at the center position, Rudy Gobert is in that evening window here, coming with 13.2%. That's great and all. Jakob Poeltl up against Boston. He's really chalky, 27% at $20. Probably looking at going elsewhere there. Mo Bamba's already locked here. Miles Turner, we haven't talked about him at all. He's 20.6% going up against this Toronto team. What's your interest level in him? Because I feel like him and Sabonis are guys we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, we really didn't talk much about this Indiana team at all. I like Turner. He's a decent producer in spots. He just has those weird games. Overall, 1.14 fantasy points per minute and priced somewhat appropriately for that production. And you do see those big upside games where if he grabs a few blocks, only a 12.4% not only, but he's got a 12.4% rebounding share compared to Sabonis at a 15.8. That's definitely, rebounding is not necessarily the biggest part of the game, but it is a big part of his game. But when you get those games where he blocks a few additional shots, he takes that leap and you're almost always getting him with positive leverage. He's always under 10% owned on a lot of these slates. So I really like getting the Turner where I can. So yeah, he'd be in play there. So Sabonis would definitely be in play for me as well. I just like the production. Also a 1.14 fantasy point per minute producer, 17.5% assist share, 15.8% rebounding. Does a lot on the basketball court. I always like getting the multi-category contributors when I can. So I like Sabonis a lot there, but Turner would definitely be in play at that Yahoo price.
Somebody was just talking about Joker again being like, well, they're already priced for Joker out. Yeah, over on DK a little bit more so. A lot less so over on Yahoo. So I'm definitely going to play a ton of them on Yahoo. That's what I was alluding to. And rounding out the center position, I think Precious Achiuwa, I've talked about my love for him. I like him on every single site today. I think that he might be a quiet beneficiary of OG out. Not going to be somebody who's super involved offensively, but can definitely still get there in a number of ways. Maybe a couple extra minutes bump there. Sitting there, what is his number? I know it was really, really low over on Yahoo today. He is $14. That's as good as it gets. I love getting to him, even at a center position where you can't miss. But Jokic off the board, I think it definitely allows for you to fall into that middle range a little bit more. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. 0.94 fantasy points per minute for $14 over there. That's a steal. That makes a ton of sense. So yeah, with a little bit more to do, probably a little bit more time on the court with OG out, I definitely like that. That makes a lot of sense to me, and it's probably a misprice. So yeah, take advantage while you can.
J. Michael Green, the best play at center, though, $11. No way around it. Play a lot of him. I love it. We're at 4:30 here on the West Coast, 7:30 out there by Terry on the East Coast. Terry, I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Had an absolute blast here with the show. How you doing? And how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Let's start the show. Let's
run it back for another hour and a half. No, I need a nap here before I go to dinner. I'm going to have to do some late swap here as well. But Terry, any final words for the people is what I'm getting at.
I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving out there. Good Thanksgiving Friday. Enjoy your weekends. Big NFL Sunday coming up. Good luck tonight, everybody. We love you guys.
Shout out Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass for dealing with my shenanigans. Shout out Loco in the chat, keeping us all updated in the premium Discord for all of the news, all the great things. No other shows here today, but of course, we've got tons coming your way tomorrow. I'll be doing an ownership show, I know, with our friend Neil Orfield, who's been in and out of chat here as well. Absolute stud in the DFS industry. We've got so much content for NFL. Check it all out. NBA tomorrow. We'll catch you guys later.